What if I told you that the most powerful object in all of human history has been missing for over 2,500 years? The Ark of the Covenant, God's earthly throne, did not simply vanish. It was hidden, and the clues to its location may still be scattered like breadcrumbs across the pages of the Bible. In the next hour, we're going to dig into every detail surrounding this legendary artifact, from its divine construction to the moment it disappeared from history. We'll explore the most astonishing theories about where it might be now. But before we dive into the mystery, if you're new here, take a second to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep producing content that dives deep and helps you discover something new. Also, drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. We're building a global community of seekers. Now then, let's begin. Let's journey into the legend of the lost throne of God. Deep in the mountains of Ethiopia, an ancient church stands like a sentinel over what might be the greatest treasure on earth. The monks there speak in hushed voices of a golden chest that once held the voice of God himself. They claim it rests untouched, sealed behind thick stone walls for thousands of years. But they could be wrong, or lying, or perhaps guarding the most sacred secret the world has ever known. This is the story of the Ark of the Covenant, a wooden chest overlaid in gold, a vessel that vanished from Jerusalem more than 2 millennia ago. Some say it held stone tablets etched by the very finger of God. Others believe it contained powers so potent they could destroy cities or raise the dead. Kings have perished seeking it. Armies have crossed continents, driven by whispers of its location. Raiders, scholars, priests, treasure hunters, all obsessed with a single impossible question. Where is the throne of God? The last time it was seen with certainty, Solomon's temple shimmered beneath the sun in Jerusalem. The ark rested in utter darkness, hidden behind a veil so thick that sunlight could not pierce it. Only one man could approach it, and only on one day each year. The high priest would enter, trembling, his robe lined with bells so others would know he still lived. If the bells fell silent, they would pull his body out with a rope tied to his ankles. Then the Babylonians came. Flames consumed the temple. Smoke coiled into the sky above the holy city for days. And when the ashes cooled, the ark was gone. No record tells of it being captured. No account describes it being destroyed. It simply vanished, as though it had never been there at all. Yet the stories would not die. Medieval knights claimed they discovered it buried beneath Solomon's stables. Ethiopian emperors declared it the source of their divine right to rule. Nazi expeditions combed the deserts, convinced that whoever held the ark would control the world. Hollywood turned it into the ultimate cinematic obsession. A box so powerful, just peeking inside could melt flesh from bone. And still, somewhere between ancient myth and dusty history, the truth waits. Because the ark was real. It existed. The Bible describes it with meticulous precision. Every material, every measurement, every golden cherub that stood guard atop its lid. For centuries, it was the sacred heartbeat of an entire civilization. It led armies into battle. It struck down anyone who touched it without permission. It embodied the presence of the divine, made manifest in gold and wood. The search continues to this day. Satellites scan remote valleys. Ground-penetrating radar probes the foundations of ancient ruins. Teams of archaeologists sift through forgotten caves and rubble. Each expedition brings new theories, new flashes of hope, and new disappointments. The ark remains as elusive as smoke, as hidden as shadow. Some believe it lies sealed inside a cave on Mount Nebo, placed there by the prophet Jeremiah before Jerusalem fell. Others suspect it may rest in tunnels beneath the Temple Mount, hidden by the Knights Templar centuries later. The Temple Mount is one place where some believe the Knights Templar may have concealed their most prized discovery. Meanwhile, Ethiopian tradition holds firmly to the claim that the ark rests in Aksum, hidden away behind stone walls and watched over by a lone monk who has sworn never to reveal its secrets. Fringe theories stretch even further, placing the ark everywhere from the misty cliffs of Ireland to the sacred peaks of Japan, from the mystery of Oak Island to the rugged depths of the Grand Canyon. But perhaps the truth is simpler. Perhaps it's deeper than any treasure map or coded scroll. Maybe the ark's greatest power never came from its physical form at all, but from what it symbolized. A human longing to touch the divine, to grasp the infinite within the boundaries of mortal hands. Every civilization has crafted such vessels. Every religion has built objects meant to house the sacred. But none have seized the imagination of the world quite like this golden chest that once carried the law of God. Tonight, we go back to where it all began. Back to a mountain crowned in fire and hidden by cloud. To a man who spoke with the divine face to face. To the moment heaven reached down and etched instructions for building a throne meant for the Almighty. Because the story of the Ark is also our story. A tale of faith and fury, of power and loss. A deep yearning to bridge the great divide between what is mortal and what is eternal. Close your eyes for a moment. Let the desert wind sweep you away, 3,500 years into the past. Feel the sand burn beneath your feet. The sky above is a searing white with no end in sight. And somewhere in the far-off distance, thunder growls from a mountaintop untouched by clouds. Something extraordinary is about to come into being. A blueprint of holy power. The mountain doesn't tremble because of earthquakes or landslides. It quakes from the presence of something far beyond human comprehension. Mount Sinai blazes with fire that consumes nothing. Its peak shrouded by a thick veil of mist, invisible to mortal eyes. Lightning carves the sky every few moments. Thunder rolls with such force that even the stones beneath tremble. And on the summit stands a man named Moses, face to face with the creator of the universe. For 40 days, he neither eats nor drinks. He is sustained only by divine presence. His skin begins to shine with a radiance so intense that, later, his people will beg him to wear a veil to hide his face. But in this moment, in this space beyond time, he listens. Instructions pour forth, words that will reshape human destiny forever. The voice speaks of laws to govern a people still unlearning slavery, still discovering what it means to be free. It describes rituals to keep holiness alive in an unholy world. It gives guidelines for priests, for festivals, for justice, and for mercy. But then comes something unexpected, something so unique that Moses leans in, heart racing. Tell them to make me a sanctuary, the voice says, gentle as a spring rain, terrible as a winter storm. I will dwell among them. The words echo through Moses' soul. The God who formed galaxies and atoms, who molded life from dust and named every star, this God wishes to live among a wandering tribe of ex-slaves in a wilderness with no home. Not as a distant deity, not merely to observe from afar, but to dwell, to make his home with humanity. The instructions unfold like a divine symphony. Every line matters. Every measurement holds weight. This sanctuary will be portable, built for movement. Curtains and poles. Bronze, silver, and gold. Fine linens dyed in regal hues of purple and scarlet. And at the very center of it all, something set apart. Something the world had never seen before. Make an ark, the voice continues. Make it of acacia wood. Moses memorizes every dimension. 2.5 cubits in length. 1.5 cubits wide. 1.5 cubits high. Roughly 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. Just large enough to carry stone tablets. Small enough for men to lift. The wood must be overlaid, inside and out, with pure, radiant gold. A golden crown must trim its edge. For golden rings, one at each corner, will hold poles for carrying, crafted from acacia and overlaid with gold as well. The poles must never be removed. The ark must never be touched by human hands. Above the chest, the voice describes something more majestic still. A mercy seat, made entirely of pure gold, equal in size to the ark itself. From that same gold, 2 cherubim will be hammered into form. Their wings stretch out above, touching, arching in divine symmetry. Their faces turned inward, ever watching. There I will meet with you, the voice declares. From between the cherubim, above the mercy seat, I will speak to you about everything I command the people of Israel. Moses understands in an instant. This will not be some box or chest. It will be a throne, heaven's embassy on earth, a bridge between the infinite and the finite, a place where divine breath meets human ear. And the voice continues. The ark will hold 3 sacred objects. First, the stone tablets etched by the very hand of God, bearing the 10 commandments that will govern this newborn nation. Next, a golden jar of manna, the bread that rained from heaven and sustained the people through a wasteland. Lastly, Aaron's rod, the staff that bloomed, a dead branch made to flower, proving divine authority when human leadership faltered. Each artifact tells a part of the greater story. The tablets embody law and covenant, a binding promise between a faithful God and a chosen people. The manna speaks of provision in a barren land, daily sustenance from an invisible hand. The rod proclaims miraculous power, nature bent to divine will, life pulled from lifeless wood. Together, they transform the ark from sacred furniture into a revelation, a container of covenant, provision, and divine power. Everything a wandering nation would need to survive, and more than survive, to fulfill their destiny. The instructions grow even more precise. The poles must never be removed. The ark must always be ready to move. When it travels, it must be cloaked in layers. First, a veil, then a cloth of deep blue, then tough sea cow hides, then another pure blue covering, layer upon layer shielding its glory from human eyes. Moses listens as the voice explains who may approach and how. Only the high priest. Only once each year. Only after strict and sacred purification rituals. Blood must be sprinkled on the mercy seat. Incense must rise and fill the chamber. Bells sewn to the hem of the priest's robe will signal if he is still alive within the presence of the Absolute. Because the penalties for irreverence are not light. They are swift. They are final. The sacred is not to be handled as common. The holy demands awe. This much power, concentrated and contained, is no different than lightning in a jar or sunlight caught in silk. As the 40 days draw to a close, Moses stands, cradling 2 stone tablets. The weight is more than physical. It's the gravity of what they represent. These aren't just rules. These are the voice of God translated into symbols, carved for human eyes to read. And even now, as he prepares to descend from the mountain, Moses knows the tablets alone won't be enough. They require a home worthy of their divine origin. They need the Arkansas, the golden throne where heaven will meet earth, where fire will speak into human hearts. The blueprint burns into his memory, every measurement and material sealed like prophecy. Very soon, human hands will take divine vision and turn it into something tangible. Very soon, craftsmen will forge God's throne from wood, gold, and obedience. And nothing in the ancient world will ever be the same again. The offerings pile so high that Moses is eventually forced to ask the people to stop. Their hearts pour out generosity like a flood. These are former slaves, people who once owned nothing. And now, they give everything they possess for this sacred undertaking. Their overwhelming enthusiasm stirs something in Moses, part awe, part fear. Do they truly comprehend what they're building? Do they understand the gravity of inviting the divine to dwell not above them, but among them? But God has already chosen his craftsman. Bezalel, of the tribe of Judah, steps forward. He is young, but his hands are steady with the wisdom of years. Since childhood, he has shaped wood and metal with natural skill. His eyes perceive harmony and proportion where others see only pieces. More importantly, Moses senses something else in him, something deeper. A spiritual attunement that will be essential for such holy work. At his side stands Oholiab from the tribe of Dan. Where Bezalel masters metalwork and construction, Oholiab excels in the art of textiles and embroidery. Together, they are a perfect balance. The voice has filled both men with divine knowledge, insight, and skill no human teacher could provide. Around the tabernacle site, workshops spring to life. Fires blaze day and night, melting gold until it flows like honey. Hammers ring against anvils as sacred shapes emerge from glowing metal. The air is thick with the scent of burning acacia wood, incense, and vivid dyes. Women work at looms, weaving fabrics of impossible intricacy and beauty. Bezalel begins with the ark itself. He selects the finest acacia wood, each piece flawless, without a single imperfection. With movements that betray no hesitation, his hands shape the chest with divine precision. Exactly 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, 1.5 cubits high. The measurements are sacred. Every inch holds meaning within the mathematics of the divine. The wood alone is beautiful, but it's only the starting point. Layer by layer, Bezalel applies sheets of pure gold. First, the interior, thinly hammered, fitted with perfection. Then, the exterior, until not a sliver of wood is left exposed. The ark shines like captured sunlight, so radiant it's almost painful to behold. Next comes the crown, a band of gold molded around the rim, not decorative, but regal. This is the vessel for the law of the King of Kings. It must wear a crown worthy of its contents. Bezalel shapes the gold with reverence, aware that angels themselves may gaze upon his creation. At the 4 corners, he affixes golden rings. Each must be flawless and strong, capable of carrying the ark across deserts and generations. Through these rings will pass the carrying poles, acacia wood again, overlaid with gold. They are never to be removed. The ark must never, under any circumstances, touch human flesh. Even holy things can become perilous when mishandled by unholy hands. The mercy seat proves to be the greatest challenge. It must be crafted from a single slab of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide. And atop it, Bezalel must forge 2 cherubim, winged guardians shaped from the same gold. Their wings stretch upward and toward each other, forming a canopy of divine reverence. Their faces look inward, eternally watching over what lies beneath. No one alive has seen a cherub. These are no cherubic infants from later art, but fierce, holy sentinels of unapproachable presence. Bezalel sculpts from vision, not memory. His hands are guided by something more than skill, by inspiration born of the spirit. From raw gold, noble faces emerge, terrible and beautiful, majestic and mysterious. Wings rise like arches of fire, casting invisible shadows of awe. And between them, emptiness. No figure, no idol. God's presence will dwell in the void, not captured in any form or image. That emptiness speaks volumes. A silence louder than sound. A mystery no carving could represent. Holiness that defies all imagination. As Bezalel works, the people gather at a respectful distance. They do not crowd him. Even the children lower their voices, whispering questions to their parents. The elders nod slowly, approving each sacred detail. Before their eyes, the ark takes shape. But more than that, their identity as a chosen people is being forged alongside it. Oholiab oversees the coverings. He supervises cloth dyed in blues of ocean and scarlet deep as blood. Threads are woven into patterns of breathtaking complexity and grace. When the ark is moved, these layers will conceal its glory. Layer upon layer will protect it from the gaze of unworthy eyes. The coverings are beautiful in their own right, but they exist only to shield what cannot be seen. The work continues for weeks. Elsewhere, other craftsmen prepare the rest of the tabernacle. Golden lampstands, bronze altars, curtains avail to divide the Holy of Holies from the merely sacred. Every item must be flawless. Every piece, perfect. For God deserves nothing less. At last, the moment arrives. The ark stands complete beneath the desert sun. It gleams in the wilderness, a golden testament to divine instruction. Bezalel and Oholiab step back, their bodies aching, their spirits full. They have created the unthinkable, a throne for the invisible king, a resting place for the presence of the Most High. Moses approaches, carrying the stone tablets. The law of God, written by his own finger, still warm with the memory of Sinai's fire. With reverent care, he places the tablets inside the Arkansas. Then comes the golden jar of manna. Aaron's blossoming rod will be added later. But for now, law and provision lie together within the golden chamber. The mercy seat is lowered into place. It settles with the sound of a breath, the wind exhaling through sacred gold. The cherubim spread their wings above the law, above the bread, above the throne. The Ark of the Covenant stands ready to fulfill its holy purpose, to become the meeting place between earth and heaven. But even as Moses steps away, he understands. The true test lies not in its creation, but in what comes next. The Ark is beautiful, perfect, holy. Now, it must prove its power. Soon, it will go before them, through desert trials, into battles, and across generations. It will lead them through death and deliverance, victory and rebellion. This golden throne is about to change the course of the world. The time has come. For months, the ark has rested within the freshly completed tabernacle. It has remained veiled, hidden behind layer upon layer of sacred fabric and silence. And yet, the people have grown used to its presence. The weight of holiness has pressed upon the camp like heat before a storm. But today, everything changes. Moses approaches the Holy of Holies with trembling hands. The robe of the high priest clings heavier than usual. Each bell sewn to its hem rings like a fragile reminder. You are mortal in the presence of eternity. Behind the veil, the ark waits, silent, gleaming. The wings of the cherubim cast long shadows in the lamplight. And as Moses crosses the threshold, the atmosphere shifts. Light explodes from the mercy seat, not the yellow of fire, nor the white of sun, but something entirely other. It is the glory of God concentrated, brilliant, unspeakable. It doesn't blind, but it strips the soul bare. The light speaks with no voice. It communicates without sound. And then, just as it was promised on Sinai, the voice comes. From between the cherubim, from the heart of the holy. Tell the people to prepare for journey, the voice says. We move at dawn. Moses backs out slowly, his skin now glowing with reflected light. The bells on his robe chime softly. No one dares ask what he heard. They can see the answer in his face. The wandering is about to begin. That night, sleep evades the camp. Children ask their parents, "Where are we going?" Adults lie awake wondering, "Are we ready for what comes next?" The ark, once a quiet neighbor, is about to become their guide. Into the unknown, into danger, into destiny. Dawn arrives with eerie perfection. As the first rays of light kiss the tabernacle's peak, a cloud forms. But not like any cloud they've known. It is a pillar of mist, rising directly from the Holy of Holies. Dense, white, reaching upward like a beacon of vapor built by unseen fire. The Levites know what to do. They've trained for this. Every step has been rehearsed. Now, the sacred choreography begins. The Levites approach the tabernacle with deliberate, reverent steps, their hands trembling with holy fear. Before the ark can be moved, it must be completely covered. No ordinary eye can witness its radiance during the journey. First, they place the heavy veil, the same one that normally separates the Holy of Holies from the outer sanctuary. It is thick, embroidered with cherubim, and dense enough to block every ray of light. With utmost care, they drape it over the ark, ensuring that not a single inch of gold remains exposed. Next comes a blue cloth, then a layer of sea cow skins, tough and weatherproof, to guard against wind and rain. Finally, they spread another pure blue cloth over all. The ark is now hidden, transformed from a gleaming throne of glory to a veiled and mysterious burden. The golden poles are carefully inserted through the rings. For Levites from the clan of Kohath take their designated places, 2 at each end. They're young, chosen for their strength and devotion. And now, their very lives depend on flawless obedience. One misstep, one careless act, one flicker of irreverence could bring instant death. They lift, and at that moment, the cloud above the tabernacle begins to stir. At first, it drifts slowly eastward, like mist caught in a breath of wind. Then it moves with purpose, as if drawn forward by an unseen force toward a destination only heaven knows. The signal is clear. The journey has begun. Moses raises his voice, commanding the heavens, "Rise up, Lord. Let your enemies be scattered. Let all who hate you flee before you." His words echo across the camp with strength and certainty. Trumpets sound from every direction in response. The great migration is underway. The ark leads them all, its glory veiled in fabric, carried in silence by sacred hands. 600,000 people begin to move. Families pack their belongings. Donkeys and camels are loaded down. The elderly lean on staffs. Children dart between beasts of burden, their faces alive with excitement and wonder. But this is no ordinary caravan. The cloud overhead refuses to obey nature. It moves against the wind. It shifts direction without warning. It rises and falls with divine purpose. When they expect to rest, it keeps moving. When urgency builds, it sometimes pauses without explanation. It is not led by human instinct, but by the will of the Almighty. The first day passes quietly. The ark-bearers keep a steady pace, their eyes locked on the mysterious cloud. It leads them through valleys, over ridges, and along paths that no map has ever recorded. Behind them, the greatest migration in human history stretches across the desert. And then, strange things begin to unfold. Water appears in places where no spring should be. When the cloud passes overhead, the desert sun loses its sting. Snakes and scorpions vanish from their path, retreating as if driven by invisible hands. Even the land seems to yield before the power of the Arkansas. By evening, the cloud settles above a red sand plain. The Levites, exhausted from the day's labor, lower the ark with aching arms. The tabernacle rises quickly and efficiently around it. Curtains are hung, poles secured. Bronze and gold fixtures take their places as twilight fades. Then, something wondrous happens. As night descends, the cloud begins to glow. At first, like soft moonlight shining through fog. But it brightens, slowly, steadily, until it becomes a pillar of fire stretching toward the heavens. The entire camp is bathed in its radiant light. No torch is needed. No oil lamp is lit. The presence of God provides all the illumination they require. This fire does not consume. It gives warmth without heat, comfort without explanation. Children fall asleep watching its gentle dance in the night sky. Adults sit in silent awe, recalling the stories their grandparents told of burning bushes and voices from the flame. All through the night, the pillar stands like a sentinel. No wild animal approaches the camp. No enemy dares to draw near. The ark rests securely in its tent, cradled by the visible presence of the Almighty. For the first time since they left Egypt, the people sleep in the wilderness without fear. Morning arrives. The fire fades, and the cloud returns to its daylight form, white, dense, mysterious. It hovers over the tabernacle like a banner of divine protection. When the people awaken, they find themselves transformed. They are no longer escaped slaves, no longer scattered tribes or nameless refugees. They are now the army of the Lord, led by heaven's own standard. For the next 40 years, the march will continue, through scorched deserts and winding mountains, across rivers and past hostile nations. The ark will lead them through triumphs and trials, through sacred faith and heartbreaking rebellion. Some among them will not live to see the journey's end. They will die in the wilderness, bones scattered on the sand. But others will live to step foot in the promised land. And on this day, at this moment of beginning, everything feels possible. The God who split the sea, who rained down manna, who who led them with fire and cloud. He is with them still. The Ark of the Covenant will guide them home, one miraculous step at a time. 40 years pass like the echo of a dream. The generation that once groaned under Egyptian chains is gone. Their children now stand where their fathers fell, free and marked by the presence of the Ark. Moses has given them his final blessing and disappeared into the mountains, alone with God. Now Joshua stands in his place, and the burden of destiny rests on his shoulders. Before them lies the Jordan River, swollen with spring floods. It rages too fiercely to cross by normal means. But the Ark has never relied on normal means. Joshua calls the priests forward. They carry the sacred Ark toward the riverbank, feet touching mud slicked by floodwaters. Still, the current does not part. The river rushes on, cold and untamed. Step by step, the priests wade in deeper. Water swirls around their ankles, then knees. Faith and fear wrestle with every inch they move. And then, the impossible happens. The water upstream stops flowing. The Jordan stacks like a wall, as if an invisible dam has risen from nowhere. Downstream, the riverbed empties, revealing mud and stone where waves had roared. A dry path appears. Where moments ago fish swam, there is now a road of solid earth. The priests march to the center and stop. Behind them, 600,000 people begin to cross. Families and herds, warriors and elders, children and newborns. All pass between towering walls of water held up by the hand of God. And the Ark waits in the middle, still, sacred, patient, until every last Israelite sets foot on the far bank. Only then do the priests step forward again. As soon as their feet touch dry land, the waters return in a crashing rush. The Jordan reclaims its channel, wild and full as ever. The crossing is complete. After 40 years of wandering, they have entered the promised land. But it is not an empty land. Cities rise in the distance, each one a fortress built for permanence. The first and greatest of these is Jericho, a city so old its name is older than memory, a city so rich its walls glisten in the sun, a city so strong its defenses have never fallen to enemy hands. Jericho's outer wall towers 40 feet into the air, 6 feet thick. Behind it, 15 feet of empty space. Then, the inner wall, 12 feet thick and taller still. Homes are built between the walls, forming a double barrier, a fortress within a fortress. The people of Jericho peer from their high walls as Israel's army approaches. They have heard the stories, the plagues of Egypt, the sea that split in two, water from dry stone, bread from empty skies, and fear tightens in their chests. But still, they trust in their defenses. They trust in stone and mortar, in history and height. Jericho has never fallen. Joshua surveys the city. Then he listens. And the orders he receives come not from generals, but from God himself. No siege towers, no battering rams, no ladders or tunnels. The battle plan given to Joshua defies every known principle of ancient warfare. To military minds, it sounds like madness. Yet it may well be the most brilliant strategy ever revealed. At dawn on the first day, the march begins. 7 priests walk at the front, each carrying a trumpet made from a ram's horn. Behind them, the Ark of the Covenant follows, radiant, veiled, borne on the shoulders of faithful Levites. Then come the armed men of Israel, weapons gleaming under the rising sun. They circle Jericho once in complete silence. No one speaks. No cries of war echo through the canyon. Only the soft rhythm of thousands of sandals stirring dust from the ancient road. Even the trumpets remain quiet. Children watching from nearby do not dare whisper. On Jericho's walls, the defenders grow increasingly uneasy. They had prepared for siege towers and battering rams. They did not expect silence. And somehow, that silence feels more dangerous than any conventional assault. Something sacred and terrifying walks among the Israelite ranks. The golden box glows like trapped sunlight. A sense of divine energy hums in the air. When the first circuit is complete, the Israelites return to camp. They give no explanation. They issue no demands. They simply leave, leaving Jericho's sentries to wonder what horror the next day might bring. Day 2 arrives, and with it, the same ritual. Another silent procession. Another single lap around the walls. Another glimpse of the gleaming Arkansas. Day 3 follows the same pattern. So does day 4. By now, the defenders begin to relax. Whatever Israel is doing, it no longer seems threatening. Their strange march feels more symbolic than strategic. But on the 7th day, everything changes. The procession begins before the sun crests the horizon, earlier than any day before. This time, they do not stop after one circuit. They go around again, then again, 7 times in total. With each lap, The tension grows, like a bowstring drawn tighter and tighter. The ark leads them, again and again, its weight growing heavier with unseen pressure. By the seventh circuit, the silence is electric. Then Joshua lifts his voice, the first sound heard in a week. "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." His command tears through the still air like a bolt of lightning. In that instant, 600,000 voices erupt in a unified roar. A battle cry that shakes the heavens. The priests blow the ram's horns in a sustained, triumphant blast. The sound grows, rising from the dust, from the stones, from the very core of the earth. And the walls of Jericho respond. They tremble. They crack. Ancient foundations that stood since time beyond memory begin to crumble. Mortar splits apart. Massive stones groan and shift in their sockets. Then, with a sound like mountains collapsing, the walls fall. 40 feet of stone and brick give way in a rolling avalanche. The outer wall collapses inward. The inner wall follows behind. In seconds, centuries of impenetrable defense are reduced to piles of shattered rubble. Only one section remains untouched. A single piece of the wall still stands, marked by a scarlet cord fluttering in the breeze. Rahab's house. The innkeeper who had hidden Joshua's spies. The woman who had believed and been spared. Her home stands firm while all around it turns to dust. The Israelite warriors charge through the breach where gates once stood. The defenders, stunned by the supernatural destruction, can barely react. The battle is short. The victory, absolute. By nightfall, the mighty city of Jericho is no more. Its riches are offered to the Lord. Its walls are ashes. Its legacy, dust. Only the Ark knows the full truth of what happened. Only that golden chest understands the physics of divine warfare. It was not siege engines or clever tactics that brought Jericho low. It was faith, obedience, and the unrelenting presence of God. What swords and strength could never accomplish, the Ark made possible in 7 days. The news of Jericho's fall races across Canaan. Every fortified city trembles at the rumor. No gate feels strong enough. No wall high enough. Israel marches from triumph to triumph. But they remember what truly won their greatest battle. Not spear, not strategy, not numbers or might, but the Ark of the Covenant. The presence of heaven itself brought down the fortress. And now, that golden throne moves forward, ready for the wars to come. The conquest of Canaan spreads like fire on the wind. City after city collapses before Israel's advance. And at the center of every campaign, the Arkansas. What began in Jericho becomes a pattern repeated across the land. The sacred chest is no longer just a relic. It is a weapon, one of divine origin, a force of holy war. But not every battle ends in triumph. At Ai, pride leads to defeat. Joshua's men rush forward, certain of victory, only to retreat in chaos. 36 warriors fall. The camp mourns until nightfall. Then the reason is revealed. Achan has taken what was forbidden. He had treasure stolen from Jericho, breaking the divine ban. When justice is done, when sin is purged, the Ark leads them again. And this time, Ai falls without mercy. The Gibeonites, hearing of these events, choose cunning over conflict. They disguise themselves as weary travelers. Their bread is moldy, their wineskins cracked. "We've heard of your God," they tell Joshua. "Make a treaty with us." The deception works at first. By the time the truth is known, Israel is already bound by oath. And with that oath comes responsibility. Soon, 5 Amorite kings rally to destroy Gibeon. Their armies descend like wolves, surrounding the city on every side. The Gibeonites cry out, desperate, "Come quickly! Save us! All the Amorite kings have joined against us." Joshua marches through the night. The Ark travels with his swiftest troops. By dawn, they hold the high ground above the enemy camp. The attack comes suddenly. Israel's warriors descend like a storm of bronze and iron. But what happens next will never be forgotten. As the Amorites flee in confusion, Joshua feels a surge of divine clarity. The battle is slipping away, the sun will soon set. Victory demands more than tactics. It demands a miracle. He lifts his voice to heaven. "Sun, stand still over Gibeon. Moon, hold your place over the valley of Ajalon." And creation listens. The sun halts in mid-sky, frozen like a coin suspended in blue silk. The moon stops above the valley, unmoving. For an entire day, 24 hours, the cosmos obeys the voice of a man filled with God. The longest day in history becomes Israel's greatest triumph. Hailstones rain from the clear sky, smashing Amorite warriors where they run. More fall to the icy wrath of heaven than to blades of bronze. The 5 kings hide in a cave at Makkedah, but they are found, dragged out like animals, and slain. Their cities burn. Their armies vanish. In one prolonged day, the Southern Alliance collapses. Word spreads like fire across the land. These are not just warriors. These are people who command the sun and the moon, who summon hail from clear skies, who march behind a golden ark that turns nature itself into a weapon. In the north, King Jabin of Hazor raises the largest force yet. Kings from distant mountains and coastal plains gather together. Their iron chariots, the tanks of their era, fill the valleys in uncountable numbers. War horses by the thousands thunder like a plague across the land. But the ark has faced worse. It once defied Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea. Chariots and spears are no match for the throne of the Almighty. At the waters of Merom, Joshua strikes. Without warning, without hesitation. The enemy coalition, vast and formidable though it may be, melts beneath Israel's charge like snow vanishing before summer fire. Their advantage, the mighty chariots, proves useless on broken, uneven terrain. Horses stumble over rocks and roots. Iron wheels snag and fail. Joshua orders the surviving horses to be hamstrung. The chariots are set ablaze, one by one, until the pride of nations becomes nothing more than twisted metal and blackened wood. Weapons of human arrogance are reduced to funeral pyres. City after city falls. Some open their gates in fear. Others see them shattered by divine force. The ark leads Israel's army through landscapes now stained crimson with the blood of fallen kings. Columns of refugees flee in terror toward distant borders. Entire peoples abandon homes their ancestors built, choosing exile over facing the golden box and the God who dwells between its wings. Yet not every battle requires bloodshed. Often, the sheer presence of the ark is enough to break enemy morale. Whole armies flee at the mere sight of its gleam. Kings send tribute, surrendering without a fight, unwilling to risk divine wrath. The reputation of Israel's God spreads faster than the armies that bear his name. Some cities would rather burn than bend. Their rulers choose destruction over life under foreign rule. The ark offers no mercy to such stubborn hearts. Walls crumble simply by its approach. Defenders lose their will at the sound of Hebrew war cries. Ancient bloodlines come to a violent end in single afternoons of judgment. In this age, the sacred and the violent become intertwined, an unsettling truth for later generations. The ark, which cradles the law forbidding murder, now marches in campaigns of utter annihilation. The mercy seat that grants forgiveness to the penitent shows no pity to the defiant. Divine love and divine wrath reveal themselves as two sides of the same overwhelming force. Children in Israel grow up knowing that their God does not merely bless, he fights. They come to see the ark not just as a relic of the past, but as their most powerful weapon. Enemies may have numbers. They may possess better weapons. They may be trained for battle. But Israel has something more. The presence of the Almighty, marching before them. The conquest of Canaan lasts 7 years. 7 years of continual war. Of cities razed. Of nations displaced. Of fire and steel. When the dust finally settles, the land lies beneath Israelite rule, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south. And the ark has led them every step of the way. Victory has come, but not without a cost. A generation of warriors now associates God's nearness with battlefield conquest. The golden chest that once carried only law and manna now holds the memory of shattered cities and slain foes. The God of peace has revealed himself as the God of war. Now, the ark rests in the tabernacle at Shiloh. Its wandering is paused, at least for now. But the people do not forget its power. They remember what it can do, what it has done. They know it is capable of wonders, of triumph, of overwhelming force. And in years to come, that knowledge will be both a blessing and a curse. For even divine power, when placed in human hands, becomes a dangerous thing. The price of irreverence is high. Though the conquest is complete, peace brings its own hazards. With no enemies to fight, the people begin to forget. Forget the desert lessons. Forget what it meant to walk behind the ark in awe and trembling. The sacred chest now sits quietly at Shiloh. Pilgrims still visit. Priests still serve. But it no longer leads them. No longer marches ahead. Familiarity begins to dull reverence. Generations pass. Children who never saw the Jordan split open grow up hearing only stories. Stories that sound more like myth than memory. The ark becomes a fixture, a symbol, a piece of heritage. Foreign visitors come to see it. It becomes a source of national pride, but no longer of daily awe. The tales of Jericho and the long day of the sun begin to feel like legend. The sacred starts to feel ordinary, and that complacency opens the door to tragedy. During a festival at Shiloh, the ark is prepared for transport. A new cart is constructed for the occasion. Oxen, young and untested, are harnessed to pull it. The road ahead winds through rocky hills. Without warning, the cart strikes a deep rut. The ark jolts violently to one side. It teeters on the edge of the wooden platform. For one terrible moment, it looks as though the sacred chest will crash to the ground. Its holy contents spilled across dust and stone. Walking beside the cart is Uzzah, a faithful man, a Levite, one of the caretakers entrusted with the ark's safety. His instincts take over. He reaches out without hesitation to steady the golden chest. His heart is pure. His reflex is fast. But the moment his flesh touches the sacred gold, lightning splits the sky. Uzzah crumples where he stands, as if struck by an invisible hammer. His body convulses once, then falls still. Steam rises from his robes. The scent of charred flesh lingers in the air, mingled with incense and wildflowers. The procession halts. Silence crashes over them like a wave. The oxen freeze. No one moves. What was laughter and song just moments before now turns to stunned horror. The ark sits balanced on the cart, shining in the late-day sun, innocent and unshaken. David arrives within the hour. The king, overcome by what he sees, turns pale. This was his vision, his plan, his chosen men, his command. Now one of his most loyal servants lies dead on the roadside, punished, it seems, for trying to protect the very thing he served. How can I bring the ark to Jerusalem now? David cries to the sky. If this is the fate of the faithful, what hope is there for anyone? His voice cracks. The dream of bringing God's throne to his city shatters beside Uzzah's lifeless form. David's anger burns hot, but fades quickly. As the sorrow lifts, understanding begins to dawn. The law had always been clear. The ark must never be touched by human hands. It must be carried, not rolled, on the shoulders of Levites, not dragged behind oxen. No matter how noble the intent, the rules were not to be broken. Uzzah's intentions were good, but the sacred cannot be approached through human logic. It must be approached on heaven's terms. What seems reasonable to man may be offensive to God. The moral is not always the holy. Fear spreads throughout Israel. If Uzzah, devout, careful Uzzah, could die from one mistake, what safety remained for the rest of them? The God who had marched with them through fire and battle now reveals himself as a consuming flame. Even love must bow to holiness. David halts the procession. The ark cannot go forward. Not yet. Not until they understand. Not until they know how to carry this power without being consumed by it. But where can it rest? Who would dare welcome it into their home? Then a man steps forward. Obed-Edom the Gittite, a foreigner by birth, but one who has chosen to live among Israel. He offers his house. His family trembles at the thought. His neighbors think he's gone mad. But Obed-Edom has seen something others missed. He has pondered Uzzah's death and reached a different conclusion. The ark is not evil, he tells his household. It is holy, and there is a difference. Evil harms the innocent. Holiness demands reverence from everyone. If we treat it with the respect it deserves, he says, it will bring us blessing, not judgment. The ark arrives at his home. This time, it is carried, not hauled, on the shoulders of Levites, following ancient law. No shortcuts, no innovation. The golden chest enters Obed-Edom's courtyard like a visiting monarch, magnificent, overwhelming, and utterly outside the realm of ordinary experience. It radiates power and presence, both beautiful and terrifying. For 3 long months, the family lives beneath the shadow of divine nearness. Each day begins in reverent silence. They wake early to pray. They maintain ritual purity. They whisper when passing the room where the ark rests. Every movement becomes an act of mindfulness. Every word is weighed. The presence of absolute holiness reshapes the rhythm of their home. And slowly, the blessings begin to appear. At first, they're subtle. Crops grow taller and fuller than those in nearby fields. Livestock multiply faster than expected. Children stay healthy while illness touches neighboring families. Business prospers in ways that defy logic or market trend. Word spreads. The house of the foreigner has become a haven of divine favor. News reaches King David, and with it, a storm of emotions. He rejoices God's blessing has not departed from the Arkansas. But envy stirs as well. Why does a foreigner enjoy what he himself was too afraid to pursue? Most of all, he feels longing, a deep desire to bring the presence of God to Jerusalem, to his capital, his throne, and his people. But above all these feelings, David carries the weight of hard-earned wisdom. The ark is not a charm. It is not a token to be wielded at human convenience. It is the footstool of the Almighty. And the Almighty requires honor, not improvisation. Power like this demands preparation, demands order, demands absolute obedience. So this time, David prepares differently. No shortcuts, no carts, no clever innovations, only what was commanded. The ark will move as God intended, from the shoulders of Levites, step by reverent step, accompanied by sacrifice and song. Uzzah's death was not cruelty, it was correction. A warning that the sacred cannot be approached casually, that reverence is not optional, that love and good intentions are not enough without obedience. 3 months after the tragedy, David tries again. But now, every detail follows ancient instruction. The ark travels as heaven has decreed. It is carried by men who understand its holiness and their own fragility. The price of irreverence has been paid. The lesson has been seared into memory. Then, the unthinkable occurs. The Ark of the Covenant, the golden throne of the living God, is captured. For the first time since Moses descended from Sinai, it falls into enemy hands. Now it sits in a Philistine temple, surrounded by false idols and voices that mock the holy. All of Israel mourns. It feels as if the sun has fallen from the sky. It began with arrogance, national pride, and misplaced confidence. The prophet Samuel had grown old. His sons, corrupt. The people cried out for a king, wanting to be like the other nations. Saul rose to power with pomp and promise. But his reign bred more chaos than clarity. The Philistines pressed harder than ever. With iron swords and advanced weaponry, they overwhelmed Israel's Bronze Age defenses. At Aphek, 2 armies met across a valley soaked in ancient blood. The Philistines held the high ground. Their soldiers were trained and well-armed. Israel's ranks looked ragged, tired men clinging to faded memories of former glory. The first day was a disaster. Philistine chariots broke through weakened lines. 4,000 Israelite warriors died in the dust. Their bodies lay strewn like broken dolls across the battlefield. The survivors retreated to camp. Confusion and sorrow hung heavy. The elders gathered in hushed urgency. How could the Lord let this happen? They asked one another. Their faith trembled beneath the weight of failure. Then came a voice with a fatal suggestion. "Bring the ark from Shiloh," someone said. "If it comes among us, it will save us." The idea spread like fire through dry grass. The ark had never failed them. It had brought victory at Jericho, at Ai. It would surely turn the tide again. Messengers raced through the night, back to Shiloh, to the sanctuary where the ark still rested. Hophni and Phinehas, the corrupt sons of Eli, offered to escort the sacred chest. They saw opportunity for glory, a chance to stand beside power and bask in victory. The ark arrived at dawn, carried by Levite shoulders, just as prescribed. But something felt off. The air was still, but not holy. The golden cherubim gleamed, but dimly. There was power, yes, but it felt withdrawn, held back, guarded. Still, when the soldiers saw it, they roared with triumph. "The God of Israel has come to fight for us," they cried. 1,000 voices lifted in cheers. Weapons thrust skyward. Despair transformed into electric confidence. The Philistines heard the uproar. Scouts reported back with trembling voices. The ark was in the camp. Terror spread like contagion. They had heard the stories. Egypt's plagues, the parted sea, the fall of Jericho. This was no ordinary war chest. This box destroyed empires. "Woe to us," cried the Philistine commanders. "Who can stand before gods like these?" But fear hardened into desperate bravery. "If we're to die, we'll die fighting," they resolved. Better death and defiance than slavery and fear. They formed ranks like men with nothing left to lose. The battle began with a surge. Trumpets blared. War cries echoed. Israel advanced behind the ark, sure of victory. But no miracle came. Philistine spears pierced flesh. Iron swords shattered bronze shields. Israel's ranks buckled. Their formation crumbled. The ark's presence did not protect them. Men fell mere feet from the sacred chest. Arrows screamed through air that should have been holy. The unthinkable unfolded before their eyes. God's people were losing, with the ark among them. Panic spread. The chosen began to flee. The retreat grew into a stampede. Weapons were dropped, armor abandoned. And then, disaster. The Levites bearing the ark stumbled. They fell, and the Philistines closed in. Hophni and Phinehas died defending it, their corrupt lives ending not in honor, but futility. Foreign hands, unclean, untrained, reached for the ark and saw. They lifted it like spoils of war, their mouths filled with songs of triumph. And just like that, the throne of the Almighty was taken, carried off by unbelievers, as if it were nothing more than a golden box. The impossible had come to pass. The throne of the Almighty had fallen into the hands of pagans. Before the sun could set, a lone survivor arrived in Shiloh, clothes torn, hair caked with dust, his face hollow with grief. He found Eli the priest waiting by the city gate, his blind eyes turned toward the road. At 98 years old, Eli had sat there all day, his spirit burdened with dread. "What happened, my son?" he asked, though the sight of the messenger already told him that tragedy had arrived. "Israel has fled before the Philistines," the man gasped, struggling to breathe. "There's been a great slaughter. Your 2 sons are dead, and the Ark of God has been captured." The last sentence shattered Eli's composure. He fell backward from his chair. His neck broke when he hit the ground. The shock of the Ark's loss ended his life more certainly than any sword ever could. Across Israel, the news spread like wildfire. The Ark, the symbol of divine presence, the sacred throne of the Most High, was now a trophy in a pagan temple. It was unthinkable. How could this happen? How could the God of Abraham and Moses allow his own throne to fall into enemy hands? Some blamed Hophni and Phinehas, whose corruption had long defiled the priesthood. Others condemned Saul's reckless leadership, or the people themselves for demanding a king like other nations. A few whispered darker doubts, that perhaps God had finally given up on them, disgusted by their persistent unfaithfulness. But the truth was far simpler and far more devastating. They had treated the Ark like a magical object, a talisman of guaranteed victory, rather than the sacred dwelling place of the Holy One. They assumed that divine power would operate automatically, regardless of their obedience or condition. They forgot that God's presence cannot be summoned like a servant, it can only be welcomed in reverence. Meanwhile, in Philistine cities, celebrations broke out. Laughter-filled temples, drums echoed in victory processions, and incense rose in clouds of triumph. They had done what no one believed possible. They had captured the Ark of Israel's God. Surely this meant that their own gods were greater. Surely this spelled the end of Israelite power forever. But they were about to discover what Israel had forgotten. The Ark of the Covenant belongs to no nation. It serves only one master, and that master was not pleased with his new surroundings. In the Philistine city of Ashdod, the Ark was placed in the temple of Dagon. The golden chest sat beneath torchlight, its cherubim wings casting eerie shadows against carved stone walls filled with images of fish-bodied deities. Dagon loomed above the Ark, a towering idol of polished stone, half man, half fish, the god of fertility and grain. Worshippers had filled his chamber with offerings of oil and grain. Golden vessels gleamed in candlelight, lining the niches of the sanctuary. This was Dagon's realm, his seat of power among the Philistines. To the priests, placing the captured Ark at his feet sent an unmistakable message. Dagon had triumphed. The God of Israel had been defeated. The Ark now stood not as a threat, but as proof of Philistine superiority. Night fell, quiet and strange. No wind stirred the palms. The sea whispered instead of roared. The streets slept in stillness. But inside the temple, the air thickened. The Ark sat in silence, unmoved, but not empty. Power radiated from it like heat from molten metal. Ancient authorities stirred. The same voice that spoke atop Sinai had entered the sanctuary of Dagon, and it had not come in peace. At dawn, the first priest entered for morning rites and froze. Dagon had fallen. The immense statue lay face down before the Ark, his stone bolt pressed flat to the floor, as though bowing to a superior force. Arms once lifted in victory now splayed helplessly against the stone. It had taken 20 men to raise him during construction. Yet somehow, during the night, he had collapsed, his mighty form cast prostrate before the Ark of the living God. Panic rippled through the temple. The statue weighed several tons. Its base was carved from a single block. The building had not shaken. The guards had seen nothing. No intruder had passed through the sealed gates. Some muttered earthquake, though the ground had not stirred. Others suggested sabotage. A few whispered, almost fearfully, that the God of Israel still had power, even here. But debate yielded to necessity. Dagon had to be restored before word spread to the people. Ropes were tied. Pulleys creaked. Sweat poured from the backs of strong men. Finally, the idol was raised again. By noon, everything looked normal. The priests offered no explanations. They told no one outside the temple. It was probably a coincidence. They insisted, a fluke. Surely nothing more. That night passed without incident. But in the morning, the temple erupted in screams. Dagon had fallen again, but this time, he had not merely toppled. He had been destroyed. His head lay at the base of the Arkansas. Both stone hands had broken off and now rested near the threshold. Only his torso remained, cracked and blood-stained on the pedestal. Blood, though no man or beast had been harmed. The coppery tang filled the air, mingling with incense and crushed myrrh. Something had died in that temple. even if no corpse could be found. The priests arrived to find chaos. Some beat their chests. Others tore their ropes. Many wept in shame and confusion. Their god had not only fallen, he had been dismembered, executed, defeated in his own sanctuary by a silent, golden box that had done nothing more than sit in place. Word escaped the temple despite every attempt to contain it. Citizens gathered outside. When they saw Dagon in pieces, panic overtook reverence. Their protector lay broken. Their ancient symbol of strength and prosperity had been publicly humiliated by a foreign god, one who had come as a prisoner. And yet that night's supernatural display was only the beginning. As the sun rose over Ashdod, strange symptoms began to appear. A man scratched his leg, only to discover a painful lump beneath the skin. A woman found a swelling under her arm that pulsed with each beat of her heart. By midday, hundreds had fallen ill. The lumps grew larger and more painful with every passing hour. Children wailed in agony. Adults cried out in helplessness. No medicine brought relief. The plague showed no favoritism. Rich and poor, young and old, priest and commoner alike, none were spared. Entire households collapsed into writhing misery. The city's healers admitted defeat, and slowly the realization settled over them all. The plague had started the morning after Dagon's destruction, and with each day that the ark remained, the suffering worsened. The cause was clear. The God of Israel had not been defeated. He was exacting judgment, and nature itself seemed to join him. Rats emerged in numbers never seen before. They swarmed the streets in broad daylight. Their squealing echoed through alleys. They gnawed through food stores, infested kitchens, scurried through homes. The plague of tumors was now accompanied by a plague of rats. Disease and vermin marched hand in hand, turning Ashdod into a city under siege, not from soldiers, but from heaven. The city's leaders, their own skin marked by agonizing swellings, gather in an emergency session, grimacing in pain and fear as they come to a unanimous conclusion. We cannot continue to keep the Ark of the God of Israel within our walls. His hand is heavy upon us, and even upon our god Dagon. Yet the question of where to send it becomes the next urgent dilemma. The answer, though seemingly simple, is deeply troubling. Let another Philistine city take the burden. Gath, perhaps out of pride or ignorance, agrees to receive the Ark, eager to display such a powerful relic as their own, despite the desperate warnings from Ashdod. And so, the golden chest is loaded onto a cart pulled by oxen, its handlers maintaining a careful and reverent distance, fully aware of what they're transporting. As the ark passes through the gates of Gath, something miraculous begins to happen in Ashdod. The swelling subsides, the rats vanish, and a wave of relief sweeps over the people like fresh water poured over scorched skin. But the sense of victory in Gath is short-lived. Within mere days, the same symptoms of affliction descend upon the city. Painful lumps erupt across the bodies of its citizens. Vermin pour out from basements and granaries. The curse has not remained behind. It has followed the ark with unrelenting force. The leaders of Gath act swiftly, wasting no time in transferring this nightmare to yet another place. Ekron, the next city in line, reluctantly agrees to house the sacred vessel, though its leaders do so with trembling hands and reluctant hearts. They know what awaits them, having heard too clearly the horrors suffered by their neighbors. But in the name of political unity, they accept what feels like a sentence. And, as predicted, the moment the ark enters their city, calamity intensifies. The tumors become more grotesque, the pain more unbearable, and death creeps into the alleyways and courtyards, snatching away the weak who can no longer endure the torment. The Ark of the Covenant has become nothing less than a divine weapon of mass destruction, unleashing holy judgment upon every city arrogant enough to house it. 7 long months pass in terror and chaos, and across all 5 major Philistine cities, the same truth has taken root with chilling clarity. The God of Israel cannot be conquered, only resisted briefly before he asserts his sovereignty. His ark is not a prize, it is a throne, and it answers to no other power. No pagan temple can restrain it. No idol can withstand its presence. At last, the Philistine rulers meet in a final, desperate council. The ark must be returned to Israel, but how can they do so without appearing utterly defeated? What kind of offering could possibly appease such a terrible and holy God? How do they send his throne back without openly confessing their own God's inferiority? The solution, when it finally comes, is as strange as the ark itself. But for now, the golden chest rests in Ekron's plague-ridden streets, its cherubim wings spread like a silent judgment over a city realizing too late that some victories come at far too high a cost. After 7 relentless months of disease, death, and divine punishment, the Philistine lords are fully convinced. Keeping the ark means condemning their cities to extinction. In every place where the ark has rested, sickness and suffering have followed like a ghostly shadow. Tumors, rodents, funerals, the signs are unmistakable. Something must be done before every last Philistine settlement is turned into a graveyard. The 5 rulers gather in Gaza, their faces gaunt and sleepless, each man branded by painful swellings and haunted dreams. They have learned a lesson Israel once forgot. The God of the Hebrews is no tribal deity. He cannot be subdued, only briefly opposed. We have to return it, declares Achish of Gath, his voice ragged from nights of despair. Every moment we delay, more of our people die. Our gods are powerless to stop this. Yet sending the ark back is not as simple as it sounds. How do you return a captured relic to your enemy without signaling total defeat? How do you admit, in front of your people and your gods, that Israel's deity has proven stronger than yours? The political embarrassment would be profound. The priests and diviners huddle around the table, their faces pale, hollow-eyed from months spent consulting entrals, omens, scrolls, and whispered incantations. At last, the chief diviner speaks. Do not send it back empty-handed, he advises. Present guild offerings along with it. 5 golden tumors and 5 golden rats, 1 for each of your cities. Perhaps this act of humility will soften the God of Israel's wrath and lift his hand from upon us. The suggestion is strange, but deeply symbolic. These golden icons, forged by Philistine craftsmen, will serve as eternal memorials of their shame, pain transformed into art. Each tumor will be rendered in shimmering detail, each rat cast with unsettling precision. They will be trophies of a divine victory, relics of human pride undone by sacred power. Still, the matter of transport looms. How does one move such a lethal artifact without incurring further divine wrath? The answer arrives with eerie clarity. Build a brand new cart. Choose 2 milk cows, ones that have never been yoked. Hitch them to the cart and shut their calves in a separate enclosure. If these cows, separated from their nursing calves, walk of their own accord toward Israel, then you will have your sign. No natural behavior could explain such a decision. The plan is bizarre, but somehow deeply compelling to minds exhausted by supernatural horror. Cows never stray from their calves. If they do, this will be proof. The work begins immediately. Artisans labor day and night to complete the 5 golden tumors and 5 golden rats. Each item becomes a masterpiece of tragic beauty. The cart, built from the strongest wood and bound in iron, is crafted with extreme care. This vehicle must carry the most dangerous object in the ancient world. The cows, oddly enough, prove harder to find. Herds are searched until 2 nursing mothers are located, never yoked, still feeding their young. Their calves are taken away, kept within earshot but out of sight. The ark arrives in Gaza, carried with precision by handlers who never touch it directly. It remains majestic, terrifying, and entirely unchanged by its time among foreigners. Its gold shines as fiercely as ever. The cart is carefully prepared, and the ark is lifted aboard using poles and ropes. No hand dares touch its surface. The 5 golden tumors and 5 golden rats are placed beside it like sacred confessions. The cows are hitched, but they bellow in grief, calling for their calves just beyond reach. Their udders are swollen, their maternal instincts screaming. Dawn breaks clear and still. The procession is ready, yet no driver stands to guide it. This must be a test of divine intent alone. The 5 Philistine lords watch from a distance, hearts pounding in fear and awe. The gates creak open. The road stretches toward Beth Shemesh, an Israelite town. Everything hinges on the next few moments. And then, astonishingly, the cows begin to walk not toward their calves, but straight toward the border of Israel. Hooves clatter against stone with eerie confidence. They do not pause. They do not turn. They move as though compelled by a will far beyond nature. The watchers are dumbstruck. These animals have become vessels of holy purpose. Their eyes remain fixed on a path they have never traveled. The lords follow from afar, not daring to interfere, unable to look away. This is the most expensive lesson in theology they will ever receive, and they must witness it to the very end. Because their future and their survival depends on understanding exactly what divine power they have encountered, mile after astonishing mile. The cows continue their eerie and miraculous journey without pause, showing no interest in food or water and never veering off course even when faced with roadblocks or intersections. At every fork, they instinctively choose the correct path without a guide, and when the way is obscured by hills or uneven terrain, they navigate with a clarity no ordinary creature could possess. The Philistine rulers exchange knowing glances heavy with dread and awe. No natural explanation can account for such behavior. It is now painfully obvious that the God of Israel was indeed behind their 7 months of torment, and this humble procession has become the final proof of their complete defeat and total humiliation. As the sun climbs toward midday, the walls of Beth Shemesh appear on the horizon, where Israelite farmers are out working their fields, unaware that their most sacred treasure is returning home along the very road from Gaza. The moment of homecoming is near. The ark, after its strangest exile, is coming back to the land of its people. The cows do not break stride. They carry the precious burden into Beth Shemesh, right through the gates and into the town square, where they finally halt, their divine mission fulfilled. They stand heaving in the heat of the afternoon, still and obedient, as if some invisible hand had guided them to their appointed place. The Philistine lords, watching from a distance, turn back toward their own territories, their hearts filled with a mix of relief and defeat. They have rid themselves of a curse that nearly brought their civilization to its knees. But in doing so, they have also publicly conceded that the God of their enemies is greater than any power they call their own. The test is over, and the verdict is undeniable. The Ark of the Covenant serves only one master, and that master has summoned his throne home through the instincts of grieving beasts and the broken hearts of defeated kings. The age of Philistine dominance has ended. The era of Israel's God has resumed, written not in words, but in gold-shaped tumors and the silent march of lovesick cows. Time slips by in whispers and shadows. The golden box now sits quietly, tucked away in the hills of Kiriath-Jearim, hidden in the house of Abinadab, who treats his holy responsibility with reverence and gravity. His son Eleazar watches over the sacred chest, guarding what once brought kingdoms to their knees. For 20 years, the ark rests in silence, while life in Israel flows on. Farmers sow their seeds, mothers sing lullabies, and children chase dreams in the dust, all unaware of how close they live to the throne of the Almighty. There are no announcements, no grand ceremonies, no parades of reverence. The ark becomes a quiet shadow in the nation's story, its power unspoken but not diminished. The stories of what it did to the Philistines grow faint, dulled by time and routine. Yet among the wise and the faithful, the memory remains alive, shared in hushed tones beside crackling fires, passed from fathers to sons, reminders of the day God made idols fall and plagues rise. The ark becomes legend, even though it rests mere miles away. As new generations are born and old ones pass away, the sacred fades into myth. Boys become men without ever glimpsing its glory. Women grow old never having seen its golden wings. An entire generation knows the ark only through whispered stories, like distant stars whose light reaches the earth but never touches it. Yet Samuel, the prophet of the Lord, still walks among the people. He knows exactly where the ark rests, and from time to time, he climbs the hill to visit Abinadab, speaking softly of sacred things with the man who guards Israel's sleeping treasure. Abinadab understands the weight of his charge. Some gifts are too holy for public display, too dangerous to treat as common. Even the Philistines remember. Their mothers still warn children not to mock the sacred. Their priests still speak of the God of Israel with respect, even from afar. The ark's power lingers in their memories like thunder after a storm gone, but the air still hums. Meanwhile, in Israel, discontent begins to simmer. The people grow restless. They cry out for a king to lead them like other nations. Samuel warns that human kings bring human troubles, but they insist they want someone to march before them, to win their wars, to make them proud. In their longing for earthly strength, they forget that true power lies sleeping in a quiet house on a hill. The ark waits without voice or movement, yet its presence shapes the nation like a river-shaped stone, slow, patient, relentless. Even when forgotten, the holy does not vanish. It simply waits. Seasons pass. Rain falls and the sun returns, warming the hill at Kiriath-Jearim, where the ark endures beneath dust and silence, resting beneath the wings of a God who needs no audience to remain almighty. The obscure years pass like pages in a book no one bothers to read. But even in that silence, the story continues. The ark holds its power like breath held in the dark, ready to emerge when the time is right. Power sleeps, but it never truly dies. And then, a shepherd steps into the tale. David, youngest son of Jesse, stands before a giant with a sling in hand and 5 smooth stones in his pouch, though one alone will be enough. Goliath falls, and with him, everything changes. David, still singing psalms in his heart, is thrust toward destiny. He flees the madness of King Saul, hiding in caves and gathering society's broken men around him. Exiles become warriors under his leadership. He learns to rule not from thrones, but from suffering. The wilderness becomes his teacher, and hardship becomes his crown. Saul falls on Mount Gilboa, and with him die his sons. The kingdom bleeds and fractures. Civil war splits Israel like a stone under pressure. David mourns Jonathan, his brother in spirit, with a lament that echoes through generations, grief braided with love, both sacred and fierce. Judah crowns David king in Hebron. For 7 years he rules in the south, while the northern tribes cling to the fading house of Saul. The land is torn by bloodshed, but in time, weariness leads to wisdom. David's strength grows while Saul's legacy withers like dew in the sun. Finally, all Israel unites behind David. They anoint him king at 30 years old, and he becomes the shepherd of a single nation. His eyes turn to Jerusalem, still held by the Jebusites, strong, proud, unconquered. From their towers, they laugh at him. Even the blind and the lame could hold you off, they jeer. But David sees what others don't. He knows the city is meant to be his. He sends his men through the ancient water shafts beneath the walls, and they emerge like phantoms within the city. Jerusalem falls, not to siege, but to cunning. The city of David is born in one night. From that mountain, David reigns. His kingdom stretches from Dan to Beersheba. Victory follows victory. The Philistines, once a constant terror, scatter before him. Peace spreads across the land like oil over dry skin. And yet, despite all his success, something weighs heavily on David's heart. In his palace of cedar and stone, he remembers the ark, the throne of God, still sleeping in obscurity, tucked away on a distant hill, gathering dust while Israel celebrates. How could the king of God's people rest easy while the Ark of the Covenant remains in exile? David calls his captains. His eyes burn with holy purpose. We've forgotten our greatest treasure, he says. It's time to bring it home. His warriors nod. They have fought for cities and gold, but now they will fight for something eternal. The plan unfolds like sacred architecture. 30,000 chosen men will march to Kiriath Jearim, not to conquer, but to restore. They will bring the ark back to its rightful place. The ark is to be brought to Jerusalem with songs, dancing, and celebration. Only when the earthly king and the divine king dwell together in the same city will the kingdom truly be complete. David's heart races with holy anticipation. He has conquered enemies, united the tribes, established peace, but this moment, this mission, will be his most meaningful triumph. Not one won by sword or strategy, but by reverence and rejoicing. Today, the ark will return, and with it, the radiance of Israel's God will shine once more from the heights of Zion. The procession begins like a sacred festival. 30,000 men march and step toward Kiriath Jearim, the rhythm of joy in their bones, the music of hope in their ears. David leads them, face alight with joy, each footstep a note in a song of homecoming. The very air seems to shimmer with purpose. Abinadab opens the doors of his home to the king, ending 2 decades of faithful stewardship. His sons, Uzzah and Ahio, prepare the sacred cargo with care beyond words. No one alive knows the ark better than they do. For 20 years, they have protected it from dust and disrespect, kept it safe from wandering hands and casual glances. Now, a new cart stands ready, built just for this holy task. The oxen are adorned with garlands and ribbons, every detail seen to with reverent precision. The ark steps out of the shadows and into morning light, and after so long hidden away, it blazes like a star reborn. Sunlight catches the golden surface until it seems the box holds fire itself. The carved cherubim lift their wings skyward as though they might take flight. Even seasoned warriors fall silent, breath caught in their throats at the sight. The music erupts, harps strumming, lyres dancing, tambourines setting pace while pipes whirl melodies through the air. David leads the dance himself, his royal garments swirling like wind and fabric, his joy bursting into motion, and his motion into praise. Worship takes on form and breath. Even the ground beneath them seems to pulse with sacred rhythm. The oxen step forward, slow and sure, and the cart begins to roll toward Jerusalem with its celestial burden. Uzzah and Ahio walk close, one on each side, their hands just inches from the Arkansas. They know its weight, its movement, the sacred balance that must not be disrupted. None but them would dare walk so near. The road unwinds like a ribbon of promise, Jerusalem's gates waiting just over the next ridge. The city of David is ready, and so is the soul of Israel. The procession flows like a river of joy, sweeping the holy forward, but the earth beneath them has other plans. The oxen stumble on rough ground, and the cart jolts violently. The ark shifts, threatening to slide. Uzzah sees the danger and acts before thinking. His hand, moving from instinct born of love and duty, reaches out to steady the box. In that moment, time seems to halt. His fingers brush the sacred gold, only to help, only to protect what he has watched over for 20 years. But there are some things too sacred for even the most faithful hands. Power flows into his body, not flames, but something deeper, something unbearable. The force that dwells between the wings of angels strikes him like lightning cloaked in silence. Uzzah collapses beside the ark, the breath gone from him like a whisper lost to wind. Stillness falls like a blanket. The music cuts off. Dancing feet freeze. No one dares speak. The ark rests where it stopped, its gold now gleaming with an eerie stillness, its silence now heavy as thunder. David stares at the man who only wanted to help, and now lies still forever. The king's heart twists in fear. He set out to bring blessing, but death came instead. Holiness demands honor, and honor, it seems, exacts a steep price. The joyful march becomes a stunned funeral. Praise dissolves into grief in an instant. The ark, meant to crown Jerusalem's triumph, now casts a shadow over David's hopes. Some treasures are too holy for eager hands and too powerful for mortal plans. David, the king who conquered strongholds, finds himself brought low by the mystery he tried to carry. Fear drives him back from the road. The ark now sits, gleaming and immovable, like a riddle in gold, too dangerous to touch, too sacred to ignore. Uzzah's body lies cooling beside the very thing he tried to protect. David speaks softly but firmly to his commanders, "I can't bring this into my city. Not yet. Not until we understand what we're handling." The ark's power is real, swift, terrifying, final. Better to pause than to provoke further tragedy. Just 3 miles ahead lies the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite, a simple man with an ordinary life. The king approaches him with a request that seems impossible. "Will you house the ark for now?" Obed-Edom looks at the chest, then at his king, then simply nods. He's heard the tales. He saw what happened to Uzzah. And still, he accepts the burden with quiet courage. Maybe foreigners grasp reverence in ways the familiar forget. Maybe those not born into covenant can better sense what mystery truly means. The ark enters another modest home. No trumpets announce it. No crowds watch. It comes like a king in exile, silent, proud, hidden. But this exile feels different. It hums with promise, like clouds just before a storm breaks. David returns to Jerusalem not in triumph, but with deep questions. The city meant to host God's presence watches its king wrestle with fear and doubt. How do you lead a people when the God you serve strikes down the faithful? How do you carry the sacred when the sacred carries risk? Days roll into weeks. David sends word to check on Obed-Edom. "How fares the man who took in the ark?" he asks, again and again. The reports astonish him. Obed-Edom flourishes like a tree beside a river. His crops grow beyond reason. His livestock multiply in numbers that defy logic. His family thrives. Children play joyfully in the courtyard. Neighbors visit seeking wisdom. Everything he touches prospers. The blessings ripple outward. Wells deepen. Fruit trees bear rich harvests. Even the weather turns in his favor. Where once the ark brought death, it now pours out life. Word reaches the palace like morning sunlight flooding shadowed halls. The ark that killed Uzzah is blessing Obed-Edom beyond imagination. The same power that brings death also gives life. David begins to understand. Reverence isn't just fear, it's alignment. Respect for the holy brings reward, not ruin. The king sends more messengers, craving details. They return with tales that sound like ancient scripture: barren women conceive, sick animals recover, broken tools mend themselves. The ark's presence restores everything within its reach. 3 months pass like a song of seasons. Spring bursts early, summer overflows, autumn promises abundance beyond measure. Obed-Edom's house becomes a sacred place, a destination for the desperate and the faithful. David's fear melts into something new. The ark didn't judge Obed-Edom, it blessed him, again and again, like rain falling on a thirsty world. And now, the king finally sees. His mistake wasn't bringing the ark, it was misunderstanding the holy terms under which it must be received. David had feared the ark's power instead of honoring its purpose, mistaking awe for alignment and forgetting that fear and reverence are not the same. But now the reports from Obed-Edom's house continue to arrive like quiet revelations. Alongside his growing wealth, his wisdom deepens. His words now carry weight in the village. Neighbors seek his counsel in disputes, and his advice brings peace. The ark's presence has not merely multiplied his grain or flocks, it has brought understanding, order, and insight. Seeing this, David makes a decision. The ark belongs in Jerusalem, yes, but it must return with reverence, not with triumph or haste. No more assumptions. No more shortcuts. The sacred requires a kind of care that is both technical and spiritual, like a double-edged sword that blesses or wounds depending on the posture of the heart that wields it. Plans begin to take root in David's mind, plans shaped by humility and guided by ancient wisdom. This time, the return will honor the laws given to Moses. This time, it won't be a procession of pride, but a pilgrimage of submission. The ark will come not as a trophy, but as what it truly is, the living throne of the Most High. So David studies the sacred scrolls by candlelight. Moses' words blaze from the parchment like holy fire. The ark must not ride on a cart, it must rest on the shoulders of Levites. Sacred poles of gold and silver must pass through the ark's rings. No wheels, no beasts of burden, no compromise. The king summons the priests and Levites from every corner of Israel. Messengers ride out with urgent command, "Come to Jerusalem. Purify yourselves. Prepare to carry the throne of our God." They arrive like tributaries joining a river, hundreds of men drawn by bloodline and divine calling, standing at the gates of the palace. Among them, Zadok and Abiathar, whose long beards and weathered hands testify to decades of sacred duty. "Teach me," David says, his voice stripped of pride. The shepherd king now becomes student again, and in his humility, doors open that arrogance had long kept shut. The preparations unfold with solemn intensity. The Levites wash themselves in sacred pools, fast through the night, and pray with hearts turned upward. No man dares touch God's throne with unclean hands or a soul burdened by guilt. The news spreads through Jerusalem like ripples across a still pond. The ark is returning, not in celebration this time, but in reverence. The people feel the difference in their bones. David's joy is still there, but it's now balanced by awe, a joy seasoned by the fear of the Lord. This procession looks different from the last. There are no armies, no banners, no crowds pressing forward. Only men chosen for holiness take their places. Levites encircle the ark, priests prepare incense. Musicians tune their instruments not for performance, but for worship. David steps out to lead them once again, but this time under a different weight. The sun rises over Jerusalem as the king walks toward Obed-Edom's house, the gold of his crown glinting, the white linen of priestly robes brushing his ankles. This is not a parade. It is a sacred act made visible, a moment when heaven brushes the earth. At Obed-Edom's doorway, the final preparations are made. The ark is lifted not by instinct, but by law. Trained Levites, raised since boyhood for this very purpose, slide the golden poles through the rings. With reverent strength, they shoulder the burden. It rests upon them like both fire and breath. They take 6 steps and then stop. David has learned to wait. A bull and a fatted calf are sacrificed. Blood spills on sacred stones, and smoke ascends in spirals like prayers incarnate. Every 6 steps, they pause again. This journey is not about speed, but submission. Step by deliberate step, the ark moves closer to Zion. David's heart swells, not with excitement, but with holy satisfaction. This time they are doing it right. This honors the God who made the ark sacred in the first place. Music lifts, not wild and free, but beautifully structured. Harps ring out ancient melodies. Cymbals set a pace like a heartbeat. Trumpets declare the unseen glory riding on Levite's shoulders. David dances again, but not as before. Now his body moves like an offering. Wearing a linen ephod, he becomes more than a king. He becomes a priest, a worshiper, a living bridge between divine presence and earthly praise. As Jerusalem's gates rise into view, the city seems to hold its breath. Crowds line the streets, but they don't rush forward. They watch with reverent restraint, children clinging to mothers, elders blinking back tears. The ark passes through the gates, and with it comes the weight of glory. In the place David prepared, a simple tent, clean and sacred, the ark finds its new resting place. It needs no marble, no cedar, no gold-plated walls. God's throne requires only willing hearts and holy hands. The Levites set it down like a king taking his seat. Incense curls through the air. And just like that, the Ark of the Covenant dwells in the city of David. At last, Israel feels whole. But even in triumph, David cannot rest. A deeper longing burns in him, sleepless and sacred. He walks the cedar halls of his palace, glancing out toward the modest tent where the ark now rests. "I live in a house of stone and luxury," he tells Nathan the prophet, "but the ark of my God dwells beneath fabric." Nathan, speaking from human instinct, responds, "Do what your heart tells you. The Lord is with you." But heaven's ways are not man's ways. That night, the word of the Lord comes to Nathan like thunder and soft rain. And the message is clear: David will not build the temple. His hands are stained with too much war, too much blood. A man of conquest cannot construct the house of peace. The rejection stings, but it arrives clothed in promise. Your son will build it. He will reign in calm. He will have peace on every side. David's vision will not die with him. It will live on in his air, like a seed buried deep in winter, waiting for spring's warmth. The king receives the decree with surprising grace. If he cannot build, he will supply. If he cannot lift hammer or stone, he will gather every nail, every beam. His passion finds new purpose. He fills the royal treasury with gold and silver, stacking it like sacred mountains. Cedar from Lebanon, bronze from conquered lands, iron beyond counting, precious stones that catch torchlight like shards of heaven, all collected with one goal, a house worthy of the Lord. He sketches plans with an artist's eye and a prophet's heart. Every curve matters. Every cubit sings with meaning. The temple first takes shape in David's mind, then in the scrolls he will leave behind. And when Solomon takes the throne, he will not inherit just a kingdom. He will inherit a calling, born of war but destined for peace. The temple that once lived only in David's dreams now begins to rise under the guidance of his son, Solomon, as the weight of divine promise shifts from one generation to the next. What had been a vision wrapped in longing becomes a living structure, growing like a song chiseled in stone. Hiram of Tyre sends artisans whose hands speak the silent language of beauty, while Jewish laborers learn crafts their fathers never knew, shaping holiness with every strike and stroke. Each stone is cut to perfection at the quarry before it reaches the sacred site. No hammer echoes on the Temple Mount. No iron touches the stone within the holy perimeter. Every element arrives fitted, flawless, destined for its place like pieces of a divine design. The silence that surrounds the building process resounds louder than any chant or drumbeat. Reverence, not noise, shapes the sanctuary. 7 years flow by like rivers through Eden, and the temple unfolds like a visible prayer, its framework clad in gold and cedar, its pillars of bronze rising heavenward with solemn majesty. The holy place gleams with a beauty so overwhelming it can make kings weep and prophets fall into speechless awe. Within it, the inner sanctuary waits in sacred stillness like a bride adorned for her wedding, prepared to receive the ark, not in a nomadic tent this time, but in a house worthy of divine presence. Winged cherubim carved from olive wood stretch wall to wall, their wings extended in eternal embrace, every surface covered in gold leaf, turning the chamber into a mirror of heaven. At last, the day of dedication arrives like a new dawn spilling light across history. Solomon stands before the completed temple, his heart brimming with the fulfillment of his father's most cherished dream. Smoke rises from altars, music swells from choirs, and all Israel gathers to witness the impossible become real. The ark emerges from David's tent for the final time, carried by priests with hands trained by decades of reverence. The golden box, which wandered through desert sands, passed through exile, and stood among giants, now ascends its throne. From Mount Sinai to Mount Zion, the long journey comes to rest. The ark is carried into the most holy place like a king returning to his eternal palace. For the last time, its golden poles slide through the sacred rings. Then the ark settles into the space prepared for it since the foundation of creation itself. The wandering is over. The presence has come home. Solomon raises his voice in dedication, his prayer echoing across generations. Heaven and the highest heavens cannot contain you. How much less this house I have built. Even the king who built God's temple knows no walls can ever hold the infinite. A great cloud fills the sanctuary like a wave of tangible glory. The priests cannot even continue their duties. They fall back, overwhelmed by the presence now resting in every stone and rafter. God has come to dwell in the house his people made, and the golden temple becomes the very heartbeat of Israel's faith. Behind the veil, the most holy place lies in sacred stillness, 30 feet in every direction, a perfect cube, balanced and exact, shaped by divine blueprint and human craftsmanship. In that chamber, darkness meets glory, and silence carries more power than thunder. 2 massive cherubim dominate the space, each standing 15 feet tall, carved from solid olive wood and overlaid with hammered gold. Their wings meet in the center, forming a canopy over the ark, like sentinels guarding the very meeting point between heaven and earth. The ark sits below them, not on a raised platform or throne, but on the floor itself, humble in its posture, though precious in its essence. True power does not need elevation when it abides in its rightful place. No sunlight touches this chamber. There are no windows. Only the flicker of consecrated flame from the high priest's lamp brings illumination, for the ordinary sun is not worthy to shine in this room. The veil that separates the sacred from the common hangs thick as history, woven with blue, purple, and scarlet threads, its surface embroidered with cherubim dancing in ceaseless worship. It is more than a curtain, It is a boundary between dimensions. No mortal eye may look past it. Only one man, once each year, may enter, and even he, the high priest, must come prepared by days of fasting, purified by sacred washings, dressed in robes adorned with tiny bells so the people outside can know he still lives. Death comes quickly to those who enter this place lightly. The ritual follows ancient patterns. Blood is sprinkled on the mercy seat exactly 7 times. Incense rises in slow, swirling clouds, visible prayers lifting toward the unseen God. In this sacred space, Israel's sin meets God's forgiveness face to face. The priest whispers words too holy for public ears, names too sacred for casual tongues. His footsteps echo strangely in this space, for sound itself behaves differently where the eternal breaks through time. Some say they hear angelic voices where no musicians stand. Others speak of silence so profound it tolls like a bell. The sacred changes acoustics. Inside the ark lie treasures beyond silver or rubies. There rest the stone tablets, etched by God's own finger, words that time cannot erode. Alongside them sits a golden jar filled with manna, the bread from heaven preserved for generations who never wandered. And beside it, Aaron's staff, the rod that budded with almond blossoms, a dead branch that bore life, declaring God's choice and making miracle feel ordinary. These objects are more than relics. They are symbols in sacred form, telling the story of a people and their God in a language deeper than words. Covering all this rests the mercy seat, not just a lid, but the throne itself, where the wings of golden cherubim stretch and meet. Between them, the presence of the Most High dwells. No human may gaze directly upon it. Even the high priest, on the Day of Atonement, must veil his eyes behind incense to survive the brilliance. Some things are too radiant for the eyes of mortals, too sacred for unveiled faces. The temperature inside this holy chamber never shifts. Neither the heat of summer nor the chill of winter enters. The room exists almost outside of time and weather, insulated by holiness. When the high priest emerges from this place, his face often glows with the radiance he cannot hide. The people know. He has stood in the place where heaven kisses earth. He has seen what only one soul per year may see. In this way, the ordinary is made extraordinary, not by might, not by spectacle, but by proximity to the divine. And so the Holy of Holies remains, waiting in silence, holding its mysteries, keeping its covenant. Between its golden wings, the ark guards not just Israel's treasures, but the heartbeat of a people whose story unfolds beneath the shadow of glory. The heart of Israel's faith beats steadily within the Holy of Holies, pumping spiritual life through the arteries of a chosen people. In that sacred room, questions find their long-awaited answers, and whispered prayers reach their final destination. The invisible draws near, the infinite almost becomes tangible, as the most holy place stands as heaven's embassy on earth, the exact place where two realms brush against each other in golden stillness. During these glory days, Israel gleams like a radiant gem, set proudly in the crown of nations. Solomon's wisdom becomes a magnet for rulers and seekers from distant lands. The Queen of Sheba arrives with caravans heavy with spices and gold, yet she departs carrying treasures no scale can weigh, having witnessed wisdom made flesh and glory carved into stone and cedar. At the center of this magnificent age stands the temple, shining like the sun that governs its system, drawing all things toward it in sacred orbit. Pilgrims travel to Jerusalem in waves, like rivers racing toward the sea, flowing from every tribe and distant nation. The city of David becomes more than a capital, it becomes a sacred axis where God's presence dwells in silent majesty. Trade routes converge like spokes on a divine wheel. Merchants praise Solomon's peace, which shields their caravans from raiders. His wisdom untangles disputes with clarity beyond law. His justice binds contracts with strength stronger than iron. Prosperity streams through Israel like oil through clean channels. The 12 tribes forget old grievances. Judah and Israel move in harmony, their long divisions fading into the shadows of history. Civil wars are spoken of like bad dreams that no longer have teeth. With unity comes strength, and with strength, peace, the kind of peace no gold can purchase. Solomon's fleets cut across every known sea, returning with treasures from Ophir, Tarsus, and unknown lands. Ivory, apes, and peacocks fill the royal courtyards like wonders from another world. The king who built a house for God discovers that God builds his kingdom in return. Divine favor stretches human effort past all earthly limits. Israel's army doesn't need war to prove its might. Neighboring nations see wealth and choose tribute over resistance. Riches pour into Jerusalem as peace becomes more lucrative than conquest, and wisdom more sought after than steel. Every man rests beneath his vine and fig tree. The ancient promise takes flesh in daily life. Children laugh in alleys unshadowed by fear. Elders resolve disputes with words, not blades. Women draw water without scanning the horizon for danger. And presiding over it all, veiled in mystery and majesty, the Ark remains the true source of blessing. Its golden wings stay hidden behind curtains, yet its influence reaches every corner of the kingdom. Festivals crown the temple calendar like stars marking sacred time. 3 times each year, the entire nation gathers at Passover to remember liberation from Egypt, at Pentecost to honor the grain harvest, and at Tabernacles to relive their desert pilgrimage. The Ark silently watches these celebrations from its secret throne. From Solomon's seat, justice flows like spring water. The king who asked for wisdom over wealth receives both in abundance. His rulings become timeless proverbs. His verdicts unravel knots lesser minds cannot untie. The daily rhythm of the temple becomes the heartbeat of Israel's identity. Morning and evening sacrifices mark the hours like a divine clock. Incense rises at dawn and dusk, carried upward on the Levite songs, a national symphony of devotion and peace. Solomon's international marriages serve as diplomatic threads, weaving Israel's influence into the tapestry of distant lands. His wives bring their gods, but they also bring Israel's God back to their own people. Knowledge spreads across borders like seeds on a holy wind. Building projects bloom like stars in spring. Solomon's palace stands tall but never taller than the temple. Cities strengthen their defenses. Roads link valleys to coastlines. Infrastructure carves order into the land. Scholars and thinkers travel from distant empires just to sit in Solomon's court. The king who gathers sayings gathers sages. Philosophy and poetry thrive beneath his patronage. This golden age of Israel becomes a golden age for all of human thought. And through it all, the Ark rests, unmoved, untouched, secure in a sanctuary unshaken by war or disaster. The wilderness years seem like distant legends. This is what the Promised Land was meant to be, a place where heaven lives among humanity in peace. Yet even as sunlight bathes the temple's golden walls, shadows begin to creep along the edges. Solomon's heart, once ablaze with youthful devotion, begins to cool. Foreign wives bring foreign gods. Devotion turns to diplomacy, and compromise begins its slow, silent invasion. The man who once bowed before one god now builds shrines to many. Altars to Ashtoreth and Molech rise beside the temple's walls. The weight of glory becomes a burden too heavy to bear alone. Taxes climb to fund new projects. Forced labor steals men from their farms and families. What once blessed all now serves a few. Whispers of discontent grow louder. The people who once cheered their king now mutter behind closed doors. Even divine patience has its boundary. The prophet Ahijah finds Jeroboam in the fields and tears his cloak into 12 pieces. "Take 10, he says, for 10 tribes will follow you." The kingdom David fought to unite begins to crack while Solomon still breathes. But for David's sake, judgment holds its breath. Solomon dies not in battle, but in his bed. His crown passes on, his dynasty preserved, yet his legacy bears both gold and rust. The man who built God's house leaves behind a kingdom splintered by compromise. His son Rehoboam inherits the throne, but not the wisdom. As the people gather in Shechem to crown their new king, they do so with hope in their hearts, but also with fear in their bones, unsure if this crown will carry peace or tear the nation in two. The people gather to anoint their new king, but before they offer allegiance, they present a plea, a request born not of rebellion, but of fatigue. "Your father's yoke was heavy," the elders say, "lighten our burden, and we will serve you faithfully." This becomes Rehoboam's first test, and the future of the kingdom balances on how he responds. The seasoned elders advise patience and wisdom. Serve them now, and they will serve you forever. But younger voices, full of fire and pride, offer harsher counsel. Show your strength. Make the yoke heavier still. Rehoboam listens to the loudness of youth over the wisdom of age. He answers not with mercy, but with threat. "My father made your yoke heavy, mine will be heavier. He disciplined you with whips, I will discipline you with scorpions." The words fall like a lash across a nation's back, and in their sound, the unity of Israel shatters like pottery against stone. 10 tribes break away from Jerusalem, marching after Jeroboam toward a different destiny. Only Judah and Benjamin remain loyal to the house of David. The kingdom that stood united for 80 years fractures down its center, a wound that will never heal. In the new northern kingdom, Jeroboam faces a crisis of loyalty. His people still long to worship in Jerusalem, where the temple rises and the ark still rests. If they travel south 3 times a year, their hearts may be pulled in the direction of their footsteps. Jeroboam needs a spiritual anchor of his own. And so, golden calves rise in Dan and Bethel, echoing the ancient sin of Aaron. "These are your gods, O Israel," Jeroboam proclaims, repeating a lie older than his crown. "These brought you out of Egypt." The deception tastes sweet to hearts weary of pilgrimage. Convenience triumphs over conscience, and idolatry takes root. From behind the temple veil, the ark observes this fracture. The throne of God remains unmoved, still anchored in Jerusalem, while half the people abandon its presence. The kingdom divides, but the sacred center holds. Civil war soon ignites like dry brush catching flame. Jeroboam and Rehoboam raise armies, brother against brother, descendant of Jacob lifting sword against descendant of Jacob. The peace of Solomon's age bleeds away in a tide of betrayal. Foreign kings see opportunity in Israel's vulnerability. Shishak of Egypt invades with chariots and horsemen, plundering Jerusalem and stripping the temple of its golden shields, symbols Solomon once forged for celebration and procession. Piece by precious piece, the glory begins to fade. Prophets rise to speak God's truth into a land of deaf ears. Elijah calls down fire on Mount Carmel. Elisha performs wonders that echo the days of Moses. But the spiral of disobedience tightens, and divine patience wears thinner than parchment. In the north, dynasties fall like leaves in a storm. Kings rise and fall in a blur, many slain by rivals eager for the crown. Power changes hands through blood, not blessing. In Judah, David's line continues, but not all sons walk the path of their father's heart. Some restore worship, others desecrate it. Reformation comes in waves, each crest followed by another crash. Through it all, the ark remains in its sanctuary, growing lonelier with each generation that turns away. The prophet Isaiah walks the streets of Jerusalem with fire in his eyes. He sees the Lord high and lifted up, surrounded by seraphim crying, "Holy, holy, holy," as the foundations of the temple tremble at the sound. Yet when Isaiah turns his gaze to the people, he sees hands soaked in injustice, hearts hardened by pride. "Your new moons and feasts," he declares, "my soul hates. They have become a burden to me." Even the temple courts echo with God's frustration. Ritual without righteousness becomes noise to heaven. King Ahaz, facing threats from north and south, does not turn to the God whose ark sits just behind the veil. Instead, he sends temple gold to Assyria, buying safety from men rather than seeking it from the divine. The very treasures meant to honor God become bribes to foreign powers. But when Hezekiah succeeds his father, hope stirs. Surrounded by the mighty armies of Assyria, he spreads the enemy's letter before the Lord in the sanctuary. "You who dwell between the cherubim," he prays, "show the nations that you alone are God." The ark listens. That night, judgment walks silently through the Assyrian camp. By morning, 185,000 soldiers lie dead, slain without sword or disease. The ground is a graveyard, and Sennacherib flees home in disgrace. But even the righteous falter. When Babylonian envoys visit to congratulate Hezekiah's recovery, he shows them everything: his wealth, his armory, his secrets. Pride opens the doors that wisdom should have kept sealed. Isaiah's words fall like thunder. The day will come when everything you've shown them will be taken to Babylon. Nothing will remain. The king who once preserved Jerusalem now unknowingly ensures its downfall. Darkness creeps closer. Manasseh ascends the throne, and with him comes a reign blacker than night. He tears down his father's reforms, raises idols in the temple courts, and fills holy spaces with abominations. Even within the temple itself, he installs a carved image, an insult to the ark, to the covenant, and to the God who still waits behind the veil. God's presence endures, but it endures in sorrow. Into this age of spiritual collapse, a young prophet is called. "I'm just a child," Jeremiah protests. But God fills him with words that burn in his bones like a hidden fire. He cannot remain silent as his nation rushes headlong into judgment. While others prophesy peace, Jeremiah weeps and warns. He stands in the temple and shouts, "Do not trust in these lying words. The temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord." The people think bricks and rituals will shield them, but they forget that God dwells in hearts, not structures. His words stir outrage, but time reveals their truth. Kings rise and fall. Babylon grows like a storm on the horizon. Nebuchadnezzar marches west, a lion devouring lambs. Judah stands small and frail in his path. Jeremiah mourns, but also prepares. He writes to those already taken, build homes, plant gardens, seek the good of the city where I've sent you. The prophet who speaks of wrath also speaks of restoration. Judgment is coming, but beyond it, there is still hope. The ark rests quietly in the most holy place, unmoved through the storm of generations, while kings rise and fall and prophets thunder across the land. Still, the sacred throne keeps its silence, holding fast to mysteries only revealed to those who truly seek peace. While kingdoms unravel and voices call out from every hill and gate, the mercy seat remains still, waiting patiently for hearts ready to return. Josiah becomes king at only 8 years old, but youth does not keep him from the path of reform. As workers restore the temple, they stumble across the book of the law, hidden like treasure deep within the stones. When the scroll is read aloud to the young king, Moses' ancient words strike him like thunder, and he tears his garments in sorrow, grieving how far his people have strayed from the covenant path. The reforms begin with the urgency of spring breaking a long, bitter winter. High places fall before Josiah's passion, foreign altars are reduced to ash, and the Passover returns to Jerusalem in celebration unmatched since Solomon's reign. For a fleeting moment, it seems that the kingdom might truly turn its heart back to the living God. But while laws change, many hearts remain untouched. When Josiah falls in battle against Pharaoh Necho at Megiddo, his reforms collapse with him. His sons step back into the darkness, walking the same evil paths their forefathers once trod. The short season of righteousness gives way to the long chill of impending judgment. The prophets begin to speak more urgently than ever. Flee from Jerusalem, they cry out, for the destroyer comes from the north. But the people place their faith in illusions, believing that the temple's presence alone renders them untouchable, forgetting that even sacred spaces can be judged. Then, in 587 BC, the skies above Jerusalem darken with smoke, rising from the city walls like incense to an absent god. Nebuchadnezzar's army surrounds the holy city, their bronze weapons gleaming beneath a merciless sun. Inside the walls, families clutch their children, whispering prayers with dry tongues and hollow hope. The siege has dragged on for 18 unbearable months. Food ran out long ago, water is scarce, and children wail with empty stomachs while their mothers hum lullabies passed down from Exodus days. The temple still stands tall, its gold reflecting the sunlight like fire, but its glory cannot protect the city from what's coming. Nebuchadnezzar is no ordinary king. He commands the greatest empire the world has seen. His hanging gardens are legend, his armies unmatched, but Jerusalem holds a treasure more desired than territory or riches. It holds knowledge, mysteries that promise divine power. Every day, Babylonian soldiers push their siege engines closer, their battering rams striking gates that have never fallen. Arrows rain over the city walls, and each splintering crack echoes through alleys where prophets once walked. Inside the temple, priests go on with their rituals as if nothing outside has changed. Behind the heavy curtain, the Ark of the Covenant waits in shadow, its golden cherubim gazing over an empty sanctuary while the world outside unravels. King Zedekiah paces the palace floor, torn by conflicting counsel, some urging him to die fighting, others begging for surrender. His eyes drift again and again to the temple, to what lies hidden within. He knows its sacred weight, and he dreads what it means if it is lost. The final blow comes with the dawn. Babylon breaks through Jerusalem's defenses like a tidal wave smashing through cracked stone. They set fire to homes, shops, and dreams. Families are dragged screaming into the streets. The temple guards resist, but are quickly overrun. Nebuchadnezzar's captain, Nebuzaradan, leads the assault on the temple itself. His soldiers tear through the outer courts with bronze axes, melting gold and seizing silver, loading treasures onto wagons with ruthless precision. Each chamber they enter offers more wonders, more riches to steal. But when they reach the inner sanctum, the atmosphere shifts. The air turns heavy. The soldiers pause. Something sacred presses against their skin. When they tear down the veil and step into the Holy of Holies, they expect to see the great golden box that commands fear across nations. Instead, they find nothing. No Arkansas, no tablets, no cherubim, just dust and silence. The room that once held the universe's footstool is now only space. Nebuzaradan orders a full search. His men tear up stones, climb into recesses behind walls, overturn every hiding place. Still nothing. The Ark of the Covenant has vanished, as if it were a dream that dissolved with the morning light. The captain reports back in disbelief. They have taken the city, burned the temple, seized prisoners by the thousands. But the one artifact that mattered most, the one that carried divine fire and ancient law, is gone. Some prisoners whisper that the priests hid it. Others claim angels spirited it away. A few say it simply rose back to heaven when the house of God fell. No one knows. The mystery began that day, and it has never ended. The Babylonians stripped the temple of everything else: lampstands, bowls, towering bronze pillars. But the greatest treasure has slipped between their fingers like water in a cupped hand. Jerusalem burns for days. The sacred walls collapse into smoking ruin. Rain falls into the sanctuary for the first time, onto stones that had only known incense. The sacred is now exposed, vulnerable, open to sky and mud. Thousands of Jews are led east in chains, toward Babylon, clutching the memory of what once was and murmuring stories of what they've lost. Children born in exile grow up hearing tales whispered in the firelight about a golden box that once held God's very voice. The Babylonian conquest doesn't just end a kingdom, it closes a chapter of human history. The Ark of the Covenant, which once led armies, shattered cities, poured plagues, and cradled the divine commandments, has disappeared from the face of the earth. But absence is not erasure. Disappearance is not death. The Ark's story continues not through presence, but through longing. Its silence will echo through generations, just as powerfully as its thunder once did. The search begins almost immediately, and it will never truly stop. For centuries, kings and priests, knights and mystics, treasure hunters and prophets chase after shadows, chasing what might still remain. Babylon took lives, liberty, gold, and glory, but it could not steal memory. The Ark lives on in exile stories and whispered hopes. It survives in dreams of restoration, in the longing that what was lost might yet return. As for its disappearance, the silence left behind becomes a canvas for speculation. No ancient scroll records its final moments. No witness describes its vanishing. One day it stood behind the veil. The next, it was gone. That silence allows theories to flourish. The simplest theory may also be the most devastating, that when Babylon's soldiers stormed the temple, they destroyed everything. Sacred bronze melts in fire. Gold can be shaped into new idols. Even holy things can be reduced to scrap when empires fall. But this explanation troubles those who still believe. Could something so consecrated truly be destroyed? Could the throne of God have simply vanished in flame and silence? The question hangs, unanswered, across the centuries. The Ark had endured slavery in Egypt and survived the wilderness wanderings. It had crossed the Jordan River, split waters before Joshua, and brought down the walls of Jericho without a single blade lifted in combat. Would God really allow such a sacred vessel, his earthly throne, to perish in Babylonian fire? Some believe he would not. One possibility suggests that long before the temple fell, the priests, alerted by years of prophetic warnings, had already taken measures to protect the Arkansas. These were men raised in the shadow of holy responsibility. They might have anticipated disaster and taken steps to shield what mattered most. With time on their side during the 18-month siege, they could have hidden the Ark beneath the city in secret chambers or smuggled it out under cover of night. It's a romantic theory, one that keeps hope alive for believers and fuels endless quests for treasure hunters. It suggests the Ark is still somewhere, waiting, not lost, but in hiding, poised to return when the moment is right. Some scholars turn to the prophet Jeremiah for support. In his writings, there are hints, cryptic references to sacred items being concealed, references to holy objects placed in secret locations for safekeeping until Israel's restoration. Jeremiah didn't speak like someone resigned to loss. He wrote like a man who saw destruction coming and laid a plan to survive it. The siege gave the priests time. If they chose to act, they could have moved the Ark piece by piece, perhaps burying it beneath the temple or hiding it in desert caves, sealed from light and memory. But where would they have taken it? One plausible destination is Egypt, where long-established Jewish communities offered shelter. Trade routes could have carried the Ark southward, hidden among caravans and guarded by men sworn to secrecy. Ethiopian tradition goes further, claiming that fleeing temple priests brought it to their highlands, a place far beyond Babylon's reach. They say it has remained there ever since. Another theory keeps the Ark in Jerusalem, buried not far from where it once stood. Some suggest it rests beneath the Temple Mount itself, sealed in subterranean chambers long ago and buried deeper over centuries by quakes and time. Excavations in this sacred place are strictly forbidden, caught in the crossfire of religious tensions and political pressure, so the theory remains untested. But if it's true, the Ark could be sitting less than 50 feet beneath the sandals of unsuspecting tourists. Others believe it was moved not during the siege but earlier, under King Josiah, during his sweeping reforms. He had torn down pagan altars and restored sacred practices. Perhaps, as part of those reforms, he ordered the Ark concealed to protect it from a future he somehow foresaw. Then there's the curious document known as the Copper Scroll, discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls. It lists dozens of buried treasures, items believed to be sacred and hidden before Jerusalem's fall. Some entries describe objects remarkably similar to those missing from the temple. It might be a coded map, written by fleeing priests to guide future generations back to what was lost. Still, not all theories are grounded in the physical world. Some religious traditions hold that the Ark returned to heaven when its task on earth ended, that it ascended in divine silence, its purpose fulfilled. Others claim it never disappeared at all, only became invisible, veiled from the eyes of a world not yet worthy to see it again. These explanations live in the realm of faith, beyond what archaeology can measure. And indeed, the archaeological record offers little to nothing. No fragments, no inscriptions, no reliefs or wall paintings detail the Ark's fate. It vanished so utterly that, for some skeptics, it might as well have been a myth. But such absence proves nothing. The ancient world remains largely uncharted. Desert sands bury tombs deeper with every storm. Mountain caves collapse, sealing secrets behind layers of stone. Oceans guard shipwrecks and relics in places no diver has yet reached. The Ark could be anywhere, beneath a city, inside a mountain, hidden in plain sight. Today, modern technology offers tools ancient searchers never dreamed of. Ground-penetrating radar can see through rock. Satellites can detect underground chambers from space. DNA and microresidue analysis can identify the faintest remains of ancient wood or metals. But even with all these tools, the most likely resting places remain inaccessible. Political and religious sensitivities make excavation near the Temple Mount nearly impossible. In that space, a single misstep could spark international conflict. The Ark may remain hidden not because no one knows where it is, but because no one can afford to look. Every theory has its devoted followers. Ethiopian Christians guard their highland churches with generational reverence. Jewish scholars comb ancient texts for overlooked clues. Christian mystics meditate and pray for divine revelation. Even Islamic traditions include the Ark in their sacred histories, as a vessel touched by the divine. Everyone wants the mystery solved. And yet, maybe the mystery is the point. The lost Ark holds our imagination in ways the found Ark never could. Its absence stirs longing. Its silence commands attention. Its vanishing ensures that its legend will never die. With each passing year, more theories arise. More documents emerge. More voices add their own interpretations. New technologies uncover fresh pathways, but the mystery only deepens. The questions remain unanswered, and so the Ark remains suspended between history and myth, between memory and longing. Its absence has become its greatest power. Lost things, after all, cast longer shadows than those we hold in our hands. High in the Ethiopian highlands, where stone churches rise like monuments carved into time, guardians protect a secret that, they claim, has endured for 3,000 years. In the ancient city of Aksum, behind thick stone walls and heavy iron gates, priests of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church believe the Ark of the Covenant has found its final resting place. The Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion stands like a citadel against centuries. Its stones are weathered, its towers reach toward the sunlit sky, and within its inner sanctum, a single monk, the guardian, watches over the holiest relic known to man. Their tradition begins not with Nebuchadnezzar's invasion, but centuries earlier, in the days of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The Ethiopian queen traveled north to test Solomon's famed wisdom, arriving with gold, incense, and precious stones. But she returned with something far greater, if legend is to be believed. Their story tells of a son, Menelik, born from their union. Raised in Ethiopia, this prince later journeyed to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon welcomed him with joy, showing him the splendors of his palace and the sacred wonders of the temple. When the time came for Menelik to return home, he allegedly left with more than Solomon intended. The tale says that Menelik, with the help of temple priests, secretly took the ark and replaced it with a flawless replica. The true ark, according to this account, was carried south across deserts and mountains until it reached the Ethiopian highlands, where it has remained ever since, guarded without interruption. This story appears in the Kabra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic. It explains why their kingdom prospered while others fell, why their line of rulers claimed divine legitimacy, and why they believe they were chosen by God himself. But historians raise a chronological objection. Solomon and Sheba lived centuries before the Babylonian destruction. If Menelik did exist, he could not have taken an ark that hadn't yet disappeared. To reconcile this, Ethiopian priests offered different explanations. Some say the ark was brought later, during the Babylonian conquest, smuggled by temple priests seeking refuge. Others claim Jewish refugees brought it across generations. The details vary, but the conviction remains unshaken. Today, a single monk is chosen as the guardian of the ark in Sa. His title is keeper. Once appointed, he may never leave the church grounds. He may not speak to outsiders about the object he protects. He may not even look directly upon it. He lives alone, in a small chapel beside the main sanctuary, his life defined by silence, fasting, and prayer. His role is not ceremonial, it is deeply sacred. He maintains ritual purity through strict obedience to ancient laws. His presence ensures the continuity of a vow kept through centuries. Only he may approach the ark in Sa. Others may assist with daily rituals and temple maintenance, but none may lay eyes upon the relic. The guardian bears the weight of history not in theory or myth, but in every step, every breath, every prayer he utters in the shadows of the sacred. The priests of the church remain devoted in their service, but even they do not set eyes on the holy relic they protect. They perform their duties near the chapel, but maintain a respectful distance from the sacred object that lies behind the locked doors. Not even the patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church holds the authority to demand a glimpse inside. This veil of secrecy continues to fuel both deep belief and growing skepticism. For believers, the inaccessibility is not a weakness, it is a sign of the ark's holiness. They point to the biblical warnings that sternly prohibit unauthorized contact with sacred objects. They argue that concealment is consistent with divine precedent, and in fact, the ark's hiddenness affirms its authenticity. But for skeptics, the lack of verifiable evidence renders the claims hollow. They wonder aloud, if the ark truly resides in Aksum, why was it never used by Ethiopian rulers to legitimize their authority or elevate their power? They question whether anything tangible, anything real, actually lies behind the elaborate rituals and layers of tradition. The Ethiopian government walks a careful line, supporting the church's claims publicly while maintaining diplomatic distance from verification. The mystery, however, has become part of the economy. Pilgrims arrive from all corners of the world, drawn by hope and curiosity. They long for a glimpse of something sacred. For Aksum, the ark has become not only a matter of faith, but also a lifeline, economically and culturally. Tourism flows through the city like incense in the sanctuary. Pilgrims and travelers fill hotels, line market streets, and pour donations into the ancient church's coffers, keeping the story alive through their presence alone. Archaeological evidence regarding the region remains ambiguous. Aksum was, without question, a powerful ancient kingdom, one with documented ties to both Israel and Egypt. Jewish communities did, in fact, settle in Ethiopia centuries ago. These cultural and historical exchanges were genuine, even if the specific claim to the ark remains beyond proof. Several recent attempts to examine the alleged artifact have ended in refusal. The church will not allow outside experts to study it. Carbon dating would require a sample they are unwilling to provide. Imaging technologies like X-rays or ground-penetrating radar demand access that is never granted. And so, the mystery endures not because of what is found, but because finding anything at all is impossible. Some visitors report strange experiences while standing near the chapel. A few describe waves of emotion, overwhelming peace, or awe so intense it reduces them to tears. Others speak of technical difficulties, cameras short-circuiting, batteries drained in seconds, lights flickering without cause. Whether these are signs of supernatural power or manifestations of psychological expectation is unclear. The annual Timkat festival offers the public its closest encounter with the legend. During this grand celebration, priests parade colorful replicas of the ark through the streets, draped in silks and accompanied by music and dancing. They bless water, baptize the faithful, and remember the covenant. But the real ark, if it exists, never leaves its hidden place. It remains behind sealed doors, wrapped in shadow and guarded by silence. Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity is among the world's most ancient and resilient faith traditions. It has withstood centuries of persecution, invasion, and upheaval. Its roots run deep, and its sacred memory is long. Even when proof is absent, the story holds weight because it lives in people's hearts. Their faith preserves what history cannot confirm. And in this distinction lies a profound truth. Faith and historical evidence are governed by different rules. What a believer embraces as divine truth, the historian must examine as possible theory. The Ethiopian claim, therefore, remains just that, unverified. But it is not impossible. The Ark could indeed rest in the highlands of Aksum, hidden within thick stone walls and watched over by monks who believe their lives are shaped by its presence. In the end, the story tells us as much about human longing as it does about the Ark itself. People hunger for the sacred. They seek physical reminders of transcendent truths. They want to touch, to see, to feel connection with something eternal. Whether or not the Ark truly resides in Ethiopia, the claim continues because it serves vital purposes. It strengthens cultural identity. It draws global attention. It sustains ancient traditions that might otherwise fade in a world obsessed with change. Perhaps, in this sense, the Ark, whether real or symbolic, still lives in the African mountains. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the search matters more than the finding. Maybe the power of the story lies not in its proof, but in the meaning it provides. The Ethiopian guardians keep watch, regardless of who doubts them. Their vigil continues, quiet and solemn, as it has for centuries. When the darkness fell over Jerusalem like an advancing storm, one voice still echoed clear above the cries of fear and confusion. Jeremiah the prophet walked the crumbling city streets, his face stained with tears, his mouth burning with truth. He had seen what others refused to see. He had spoken what kings would not hear. Jeremiah had watched the rulers mock God's warnings, watched priests defile what was holy, watched a people barter away righteousness for comfort. He had stood in the temple courts and witnessed the sacred reduced to spectacle. His heart broke again and again, not just for the city, but for what it had become. Yet Jeremiah was more than just a weeping prophet. Ancient texts suggest he also became the final guardian of the sacred. When destruction drew near, someone had to act, not just to mourn, but to preserve. Someone had to save what could be saved, to shield the future with remnants of the past. In the second book of Maccabees, a story unfolds that some dismiss as legend, but others treat as a holy clue. According to this account, Jeremiah was given divine instruction as Babylon's armies marched toward Jerusalem. God commanded him to secure the temple's holiest treasures, to remove them before they could be desecrated or destroyed. The task was immense. It demanded absolute secrecy, complete obedience, and a heart willing to leave the known world behind. Jeremiah gathered a small band of trusted men under the cover of night. Through hidden corridors known only to priests, they entered the temple one last time. By moonlight, they approached the Holy of Holies. There, for 4 centuries, the Ark had rested, a golden throne over stone tablets, a meeting place between God and man. To remove it was to sever the heartbeat of Israel's worship. But Jeremiah understood this was not abandonment, it was preservation. With reverent hands, the group lifted the Ark from its resting place. They also carried out the altar of incense, the tent of meeting, and other sacred vessels, anything that could be spared from the coming fire. They exited Jerusalem quietly, slipping away as the city slept beneath impending doom. Their journey took them eastward, toward the Jordan River, step by cautious step. Their destination was Mount Nebo, the very mountain from which Moses had gazed across the promised land before his death. The symbolism was unmistakable, a place of endings and beginnings, of farewells and future hope. There, on the quiet slopes of Nebo, Jeremiah found a cave. Its entrance was narrow and easily concealed. Inside, it was cool, dry, and protected from the elements. Most importantly, it was far from the eyes of men. In this sacred cavern, Jeremiah and his companions placed their holy burden: the Arkansas, the tent, the altar, every vessel they had saved. They laid them in careful order, honoring each item with silent reverence. Then Jeremiah sealed the entrance. The cave was marked, but not so clearly that anyone unworthy might find it. Only those who understood the signs, who were led by more than curiosity, would ever rediscover its location. Jeremiah then prophesied that the cave would remain hidden until God chose to gather his people again. When the time was right, when hearts had been humbled and righteousness restored, the treasures would re-emerge. Until that day, no search, no excavation, no ambition would reveal them. Some of his followers wanted to leave clearer markers, symbols etched in stone, cairns to guide future generations, but Jeremiah refused. Human wisdom would not hasten divine will. He declared the hiding place sacred, and the timing of its revelation a matter of God's alone. And so, the cave was left in silence. The prophet walked away, carrying the secret with him. His words were recorded, his prophecy preserved in fragments of scripture and memory. The ark, the objects, the promise, all placed beyond reach, waiting not to be found, but to be revealed. When the time is right, and only then, the ark must remain cloaked in darkness. And yet, this silence, this sacred concealment, has sparked endless quests across the centuries. Mount Nebo, though not vast in size, has been combed over and over by searchers hoping to uncover its hidden truths. Caves have been scanned, mapped, and explored one by one. Still, not a single definitive trace of Jeremiah's secret refuge has ever been found. Some claim to have stumbled upon sealed chambers, ancient stoneworks that whisper of forgotten purposes. Others speak of strange occurrences while on the mountain, anomalous electromagnetic surges, drained batteries, camera failures, or sensations of intense, inexplicable presence. These claims stir intrigue, but none offer the solid evidence history demands. The legend survives because it makes emotional sense. Those who believe argue that the ark, having survived slavery in Egypt, the hardships of the wilderness, capture by the Philistines, and the journey to Jerusalem under David, could not simply vanish in Babylonian fire. Jeremiah's intervention offers a hopeful logic, one rooted in the possibility that God orchestrated a final act of preservation before allowing the city to fall. Archaeological surveys have confirmed that Mount Nebo held spiritual significance for countless generations. Remains of early settlements and Byzantine churches dot the mountain's flanks. But no dig, no trench, no excavation has revealed even a whisper of temple treasures. Jeremiah's cave, if it exists, keeps its silence well. Modern efforts face challenges not only of terrain and mystery, but also of politics. Mount Nebo rises in Jordan, just miles from sensitive international borders. Archaeological access here is tightly regulated. Researchers must seek permission, coordinate across governments, and proceed with diplomatic care. Unauthorized expeditions are forbidden. Even scientific missions crawl forward with caution. And yet, the legend continues to breathe because it gives people hope. When the world collapses, when nations fall and altars burn, the story whispers that someone, somewhere, is acting to preserve what truly matters. When darkness seems total, perhaps a sliver of light is being hidden, not lost. At its core, this is a story about faith, about preservation in the face of destruction. Every generation produces those who feel an inner calling to protect sacred truths. They don't seek applause. They don't ask for glory. They move in silence, acting with the hope that what they safeguard will endure. Whether Jeremiah physically hid the ark on Mount Nebo may matter less than the deeper truth his legend conveys. His courage calls us to foresight. His actions inspire modern hearts to preserve what cannot be replaced. The tale reminds us that some treasures are never truly lost. They are hidden for a time, for a purpose, waiting for a world ready to receive them again. When Christian armies surged eastward during the Crusades, they brought more than steel and faith. They carried ambition, an ancient hunger to recover not just holy cities, but holy relics. Among all the sacred objects they sought, none burned in their imagination like the lost Ark of the Covenant. In 1099, the First Crusade captured Jerusalem after a brutal siege. European knights walked streets where Jesus had once taught, where David had once danced. Their boots stirred dust layered over centuries of prophets, kings, and conquest. As they wandered through the shattered remnants of Solomon's temple, a fever gripped them, dreams of finding what had been hidden, of recovering power too sacred to be forgotten. These men were warriors, but also pragmatists. They understood that relics weren't just tokens of belief, they were instruments of legitimacy. Pilgrims followed relics. Wealth followed pilgrims. And those who claimed possession of divine objects could assert authority over contested lands. It was in this environment, half holy, half political, that the Knights Templar emerged. Formed around 1120, the Templars began as a small band tasked with protecting Christian travelers on perilous roads. But within decades, they became something far greater and far stranger. Their headquarters were established directly atop the Temple Mount, on the very ruins of Solomon's sacred platform. There, they constructed living quarters and chapels, but more than that, they dug. For years, they excavated beneath the ancient mount. What they found beneath the stone is a matter of legend. Medieval chroniclers wrote of discoveries too great to name. Some said the knights unearthed the ark itself, buried deep beneath centuries of rubble. Others spoke of ancient scrolls filled with divine secrets, knowledge guarded by prophets and hidden from the world. Still others whispered of treasures beyond imagining, artifacts that gave the Templars power no king could rival. Whether these stories were fantasy or fragments of truth remains debated. But what is not in question is the Order's sudden and astonishing wealth. In less than a century, the Templars became financial titans. They created an early banking system, lent to monarchs, and acquired lands from one end of Europe to the other. Their rise was too fast, too steep to be explained by donations alone. Historians wonder, did they discover something beneath the Temple Mount? Perhaps gold, perhaps relics. But if it was the Ark, the implications would be staggering. In the medieval mind, the Ark was not just treasure, it was divine power incarnate. Any group that possessed it could claim God's favor, could rule in his name, could challenge empires with holy authority. The Templars never made such a claim publicly, but shadows followed them. Their rituals were shrouded in secrecy. New initiates swore oaths of silence. Outsiders were never permitted to witness their ceremonies. Some accused them of mixing Christian rites with obscure mystical practices. Rumors swirled of heresy, of idol worship, of dark powers invoked behind closed doors. And then, in 1307, it all came crashing down. King Philip IV of France, deeply indebted to the Order, turned on them with brutal efficiency. On a single day, he ordered the arrest of every Templar in his realm. The charges ranged from blasphemy to witchcraft, accusations designed to destroy reputations and dissolve wealth into royal coffers. Torture wrung out confessions both horrific and absurd. Some knights admitted to spitting on the cross. Others described kissing rituals meant to symbolize obedience, twisted by inquisitors into acts of perversion. A few, under agony, confessed to worshipping a strange head they called Baphomet. Most modern scholars dismiss these admissions as fabrications, confessions forced through pain and fear. But one detail stands out. Several of the accused spoke of a secret object. They could not describe it clearly, but they insisted it was more precious than all their gold. Something holy, something powerful, a relic unlike any other. Some wonder, were they speaking of the Ark? The last Grand Master of the Order, Jacques de Molay, was burned alive in 1314. As the flames rose, he cursed both King Philip and Pope Clement. Within the year, both men were dead. The legend of Templar vengeance was born. After the Order's dissolution, surviving knights vanished into history. Some joined other religious groups. Some were absorbed into noble households. Others disappeared completely, perhaps taking their secrets with them. Later tales speak of hidden Templar treasures. Some believe they fled with their sacred cargo to Scotland, where sympathetic lords sheltered them. Others say they traveled to Portugal or even crossed oceans to the New World. In each version, the Ark goes with them, protected by the same discipline that once watched over the Temple Mount. Whether any of it is true is beside the point. The Templars have become myth. Symbols of mystery, guardians of forgotten knowledge, vessels of divine power. Their story survives because it speaks to the part of us that still believes sacred things can be protected and found again. The Ark appears throughout these medieval tales as a central figure, always hidden, never truly lost. Ancient maps from the Middle Ages sometimes marked supposed burial sites of sacred relics, and Templar holdings were frequently labeled among them, hinting at possible ties between the knights and concealed treasures. Yet, when these places were eventually searched, they revealed nothing. The Templars' rapid ascent and the enigmatic nature of their wealth have long baffled historians. Their excavations under the Temple Mount might explain both mysteries. If they unearthed ancient relics, possibly even the Ark, they could have leveraged such a find to fund and expand their growing influence. Modern archaeology, however, has uncovered little regarding the Templars' work at the Temple Mount. The area remains politically volatile, with strict restrictions on any excavation. Over the centuries, many of the tunnels explored by the knights have been sealed or lost. Some scholars argue that Templar churches scattered across Europe offer subtle architectural clues, details and proportions possibly inspired by their exposure to ancient Jewish artifacts discovered in Jerusalem. The mystery grows deeper when one considers how abruptly the Templars abandoned the Holy Land. Once their position became untenable, they made no visible attempt to safeguard or retrieve their supposed discoveries. Either those treasures never existed, or they were moved to safety long before their departure. The connection between the Ark and the Templars reflects the complex dynamic of medieval Christianity's relationship with its Jewish roots. Christians revered Hebrew scripture but often subjected Jewish communities to persecution. They revered artifacts from Solomon's temple, even as they defaced synagogues in their own time. The legend persists because it weaves together a compelling narrative that blends secret brotherhoods, hidden treasures, divine relics, and mysterious power, an irresistible story, whether based in truth or not. The Templars may have vanished, but their mythology endures, engraved into the imagination of every treasure hunter who searches sealed vaults and forgotten caves for remnants of their secrets. The Ark of the Covenant remains the most coveted prize in this endless historical treasure hunt. In the dark corridors of Nazi ideology, ancient relics were seen as possessing power that could eclipse any military weapon. Hitler and his inner circle believed that mystical artifacts might be the key to tipping the scales of war in their favor. Among all the objects they obsessed over, none held more weight than the Ark of the Covenant. This fascination with the occult didn't begin with the Third Reich's rise to power. In post-World War I Germany, secret societies and mystical movements flourished amid national despair. Men like Heinrich Himmler consumed books on esoteric wisdom, ancient civilizations, and lost powers. These young Nazis imagined themselves as modern crusaders, destined to recover ancient forces lost to history, forces that, once rediscovered, could usher in a new world order. The Ark became the crown jewel in these fantasies. Himmler, who would eventually lead the SS, was particularly captivated by archaeological missions. He saw in them not only the potential for spiritual power, but proof that Nazi Germany was divinely chosen to lead humanity. In 1935, the Ahnenerbe, or Ancestral Heritage Society, was formed to pursue these interests with a mix of pseudoscience and nationalistic myth. Its researchers sought evidence that Aryan superiority had ancient roots, buried beneath ruins and entombed in sacred scrolls. One of their most ambitious operations took aim at the Holy Land. Nazi scholars pored over ancient manuscripts in hopes of uncovering clues that temple priests may have left behind, clues that would point to the Ark's final resting place. In 1938, their most serious attempt to find the Ark took shape with a covert expedition to Ethiopia. Led by Ernst Schaefer, the team publicly claimed to be researching Tibetan culture and geography. But their real mission, dictated by secret orders, was to explore Ethiopian claims about the Ark's presence in the highlands. The group included linguists, anthropologists, and photographers, all loyal Nazis, who could document findings and perform covert operations if needed. They were armed and equipped for more than science. The team spent months exploring the Ethiopian mountains under the guise of ethnographic research. They made contact with Ethiopian Orthodox clergy and visited age-old churches, including the famed Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum. But the results of their mission remain locked away. Some Nazi records were destroyed as the war collapsed. Others were seized by the Allies and never fully disclosed. We may never know what, if anything, they uncovered. Public reports suggest the expedition found no proof of the real Arkansas. Ethiopian clergy rebuffed their inquiries. Local officials became suspicious. The team returned to Germany with specimens and data, but no sacred treasure. Yet rumors persisted. Other Nazi documents hinted that additional expeditions had been launched, quiet missions to explore caves in Palestine and dig at ancient sites in Iraq. These operations were highly classified and left few visible traces in the historical record. To the Nazis, the Ark represented more than just archaeology. They believed its power could make their armies invincible. The Ark's biblical legacy, toppling walls, decimating enemies, shielding its people, fit neatly into their mythos. As their military fortunes waned, Hitler's inner circle placed growing faith in supernatural solutions. They poured resources into secret programs that promised ancient powers instead of investing in practical defenses. The Ark also tied into their racist worldview. Nazi ideologues claimed the Jews had been unworthy stewards of such a divine relic. In their warped logic, the Aryan race deserved to inherit what they saw as lost holy authority. This belief fueled their persecution of Jewish intellectuals, the destruction of libraries, and efforts to erase any rival claims to sacred history. They hoped that by terrorizing Jewish communities, survivors might be coerced into revealing hidden knowledge. Eventually, Allied intelligence caught wind of these secret Nazi archaeological pursuits. British and American agents initiated their own searches, not always to find relics themselves, but to ensure the Nazis did not get to them first. The conflict stretched beyond traditional warfare, creeping into libraries, ruins, and desert caves. Both sides believed the past held secrets that might shift the future. One of the most dramatic of these Nazi quests came near the end of the war. As Allied forces closed in, Himmler dispatched SS teams on desperate missions in search of so-called supernatural weapons. Some of these expeditions were directed toward the Middle East, although their objectives were vague. None succeeded. They consumed time, manpower, and resources, precious assets that Germany could no longer afford to waste. The Nazis never located the Ark, nor did they uncover any relic capable of reversing the tide of battle. Their obsession with mystical objects only hastened their fall. This strange chapter of history was immortalized in the 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Arkansas. While the movie plays fast and loose with facts, it captured something real: the Nazi fixation with powerful relics. Audiences resonated with the story because it echoed genuine history. Modern researchers continue digging into Nazi expeditions. Occasionally, newly declassified documents offer glimpses into what was really happening during those dark years. But for the most part, their searches for the Ark remain veiled in secrecy and rumor. The legacy of the Nazi pursuit complicates present-day investigations. Any modern expedition that retraces the steps of Himmler's teams risks being tainted by association. This uncomfortable connection makes serious research more politically charged, more difficult to execute, and more sensitive to global scrutiny. The Nazi chapter in the Ark's long and troubling saga reveals how ancient sacred objects can be pulled into the machinery of modern political ambition. What once unified a people in worship can later become a wedge of division, manipulated through rival claims and contested interpretations. Though the Nazis never succeeded in locating the Ark, their relentless pursuit of it demonstrated the enduring and unsettling power that this relic still holds. In their hands, the Ark would likely have served not as a sign of divine mercy, but as a weapon of ideology. Perhaps its continued concealment was, in itself, an act of divine preservation, shielding it from desecration. In the modern era, the quest for the Ark shifted dramatically, from disciplined academic inquiry to full-blown spectacle. The 20th century turned Ark hunting into a media phenomenon. Armed with metal detectors, handheld cameras, and a sense of destiny, amateur adventurers scoured the globe in search of clues their scholarly predecessors might have overlooked. Some sought glory, others wealth, but all believed they were on the verge of solving one of history's greatest riddles. The dawn of this new age came in the 1960s, an era of expanding access to remote corners of the world. Improved travel made it possible to reach Ethiopia's rugged highlands, explore the caves of Jordan, and study ruins around the Dead Sea. As the world shrank, ancient secrets felt closer than ever. Among the most controversial figures of this age was Ron Wyatt, a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee. He claimed to have found not only Noah's Ark and the Red Sea crossing site, but ultimately the Ark of the Covenant itself. Wyatt's most explosive claim centered on a cave beneath Jerusalem's Calvary. He said he had crawled through tight, ancient tunnels and found the Ark exactly where Jeremiah had hidden it some 2,600 years earlier. According to Wyatt, the discovery happened in 1982 during an unauthorized excavation. His story, full of dramatic flourishes, seemed torn from the script of a Hollywood adventure. He described supernatural forces that prevented him from photographing the Ark and claimed that a blood sample recovered from the site had been proven, by laboratory analysis, to be from Jesus Christ. Archaeologists met his claims with instant skepticism. Wyatt offered no concrete proof. His photos were blurry or obviously staged. His scientific assertions couldn't be replicated by independent experts. Still, a devoted following emerged, people who trusted his sincerity even if academia rejected his methods. Israeli officials clarified that Wyatt had never been granted excavation rights beneath Jerusalem, a process that would have required extensive authorization and strict oversight. Any rogue activity in such a politically charged location would have resulted in immediate arrest. Yet, despite these serious contradictions, Wyatt's story spread like wildfire in religious communities. Books, videos, and websites circulated his version of events to believers eager for tangible proof that the Bible was not just allegory, but literal truth. Ironically, the lack of verification seemed to intensify rather than weaken his appeal. Meanwhile, other modern seekers turned their gaze toward Ethiopia, where the ancient claim of the Ark resting in Aksum attracted global attention. News outlets and documentary crews visited the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, hoping to glimpse the sacred object or speak with its guardian. They met silence. The monk, bound by tradition, refused to speak of what he protected. Church officials issued vague statements, avoiding specifics. The result was not clarity but deepening mystery. Some researchers turned to science. Ground-penetrating radar swept the area beneath the church. Scholars studied architectural anomalies and examined centuries-old documents for any clues about how or when the Ark might have arrived in Ethiopia. The results were inconclusive. Radar detected underground structures, but whether they were ancient or modern couldn't be confirmed. The documents were rich with story but barren of verifiable fact. Still, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church remained steadfast in its silence. Elsewhere, treasure hunters fanned out across the Middle East. They explored desert caves and followed forgotten paths priests may have once taken. Ancient trade routes were retraced. Every obscure historical reference became a breadcrumb. The region around the Dead Sea drew special attention. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls had raised hopes that other temple relics might also be hidden nearby. Metal detector enthusiasts combed slopes and ravines, hoping to strike gold, literally or symbolically. False claims inevitably followed. In 1981, a team announced they had found gold items matching biblical descriptions. But lab tests quickly exposed the hoax. The objects were modern brass, artificially aged. The embarrassment damaged public trust in Ark-related research. As the internet age dawned, the situation became even more tangled. Online platforms began spinning tales of government conspiracies and secret recoveries. Some insisted powerful global organizations had already discovered the Ark, but were concealing it for nefarious reasons. The lines between fact and fiction blurred until they were nearly impossible to distinguish. In response, a new breed of researchers stepped away from digging and turned instead to digital forensics. Using software, they scanned ancient texts for linguistic patterns missed by earlier scholars. They built databases cataloging every reference to the Ark, hoping to identify new connections. Satellite imaging revealed potential excavation sites previously hidden. Computer modeling reconstructed ancient Jerusalem in hopes of pinpointing plausible hiding spots. Despite the high-tech tools and vast ambition, the results were largely disappointing. Professional archaeologists grew increasingly frustrated as amateur diggers, fueled by passion and recklessness, damaged historical sites. Important archaeological context was lost forever. What began as a noble search for sacred heritage became, in many cases, destructive to history itself. Governments responded with tighter restrictions. Israel, Jordan, and Ethiopia raised the bar for obtaining dig permits. International researchers faced greater scrutiny. The Ark's profound religious and political sensitivity made cooperation harder than ever. Yet the pursuit pressed on. Each new generation of seekers believed their tools were sharper, their faith stronger, their timing divine. They held fast to the belief that they would finally uncover what others could not. And so the legend of the Ark continued, fed not just by curiosity, but by an unshakable longing to touch the eternal and find what the world had lost. The relentless cycle of speculation persisted, an endless loop devoid of resolution. Television programs capitalized on the public's captivation with the search for the Ark of the Covenant, crafting documentary series that tantalized viewers with promises of conclusive revelations. Yet, these shows often delivered little more than conjecture and theatrical reenactments. The medium, by its nature, prioritized sensationalism over meticulous scrutiny, placing entertainment above historical fidelity. Certain programs showcased self-proclaimed experts who spun extraordinary tales without substantiating their claims. With unwavering assurance, they wove narratives of ancient conspiracies and contemporary cover-ups, leaving audiences grappling to separate credible scholarship from imaginative fiction. The advent of social media intensified this dynamic, amplifying both authentic inquiry and audacious fabrications. Amateur investigators gained the ability to broadcast their hypotheses to global audiences instantaneously. Viral videos surfaced, purporting to reveal fragments of the Ark or clandestine excavations, yet verifying these claims grew increasingly futile amidst the deluge of information. Advances in photography and video editing software rendered hoaxes more persuasive than ever before. Images could be altered to depict non-existent artifacts, and forged documentation achieved a veneer of professional authenticity. The boundary between evidence and deception became so indistinct as to be nearly unrecognizable. Nevertheless, amidst this chaos, dedicated researchers pursued rigorous academic inquiry. They employed disciplined methodologies to scrutinize ancient texts, partnered with reputable institutions, and disseminated their findings through peer-reviewed journals, where their work faced scrutiny from fellow scholars. These earnest investigators made meaningful strides in illuminating the historical context of the Ark, even if they could not pinpoint its location. Their efforts refined the dating of biblical manuscripts, traced ancient trade networks, and evaluated archaeological remnants from the Temple period. Such work enriched understanding, despite the absence of definitive proof regarding the Ark's fate. The scarcity of concrete evidence underscored the challenges these scholars faced. Ancient records are sparse and frequently contradictory, while archaeological fragments from the relevant era remain incomplete. The historical narrative is riddled with voids that may never be bridged. This ambiguity created a fertile ground for both principled scholarship and inventive speculation. Serious researchers openly acknowledged the constraints of available evidence, while popular authors filled the gaps with vivid, imaginative theories. Each approach catered to distinct audiences with differing expectations. The contemporary quest for the Ark mirrors our culture's complex relationship with ancient enigmas. We wield unprecedented technological prowess, yet confront the same enduring obstacles that have always thwarted seekers. Physical evidence remains elusive, even with our sophisticated tools. Perhaps the pursuit itself has surpassed the importance of discovery. The search for the Ark captivates human curiosity and spiritual yearning in ways that purely academic study cannot replicate. The mystery fulfills a role that resolution might diminish. Modern Ark hunters embody a broader human impulse to seek tangible validation for intangible convictions. In an era dominated by scientific materialism, individuals crave physical relics that affirm spiritual realities. The Ark symbolizes a conduit between the divine and the earthly, a bridge many yearn to traverse. The hoaxes and spurious claims that pervade contemporary searches reflect a profound hunger for certainty. When authentic evidence is scarce, people manufacture their own. When reality falls short, fiction steps in to fill the void. The distinction between faith and proof grows perilously indistinct. Yet, alongside the sensationalism, legitimate scholarship persists. Researchers apply innovative techniques to age-old questions, and technology unveils previously obscured facets of ancient sites. The dialogue between past and present endures through careful investigation, eschewing reckless conjecture. The modern chapter of the Ark's story continues to unfold, with each year bringing fresh claims and renewed inquiries. Some will prove fruitless, but others may contribute to a deeper understanding. The search persists because the questions remain unresolved, and perhaps that is fitting. The Ark of the Covenant emerged from an era when divine mystery was embraced as intrinsic to existence. Its disappearance preserves that sense of awe in a world that often reduces everything to data and analysis. Beyond its gold and wood, beyond its ancient craftsmanship and historical enigma, the Ark carries meanings that transcend its physical form. Across centuries and cultures, it has become a symbol that speaks to humanity's deepest aspirations for divine connection. In Jewish tradition, the Ark represents God's presence dwelling among His chosen people, serving as a throne where the infinite Creator communed with mortal representatives. The space between its golden cherubim marked the threshold between heaven and earth, where boundless holiness met finite humanity. The Ark was more than a symbol, It embodied the covenant itself, the sacred pact between God and Israel. Its contents, including the stone tablets, were not merely ancient legal codes but living testaments to an eternal bond. The Hebrew Bible employs regal imagery to describe the ark, likening it to a throne from earthly courts. Yet, unlike static pagan idols confined to specific shrines, Israel's God traveled with his people, rendering the ark a symbol of divine presence that was both intimate and universally transcendent. Christian interpretations layered additional significance onto the ark and saw. Early church fathers drew parallels between its Old Testament role and Christ's mission, viewing both as mediators between God and humanity. Medieval theologians crafted intricate allegories, seeing the ark's gold as divine nature, its wood as human nature, and its cherubim as angelic adoration, with every detail pointing to Christ and the sacraments. Some Christian traditions reimagine Mary, the mother of Jesus, as a new ark, carrying God within her just as the ancient ark bore his presence. Islamic sources, too, acknowledge the ark's importance, with the Quran describing it as a sign for the children of Israel, containing relics of Moses and Aaron. Its loss marked a pivotal moment in Israel's spiritual history. The ark's symbolism transcends religious boundaries, resonating with universal human experiences. It embodies the quest for the sacred within a material world, the hope that divine power can inhabit physical objects while remaining mysteriously beyond them. Psychologically, the ark aligns with archetypal patterns, sacred vessels that appear across cultures, symbolizing the psyche's capacity to hold profound truths. Its disappearance amplifies its power, as lost objects often carry greater weight than those found. The absent ark becomes a canvas for human longing, representing justice, power, or divine love. Its hidden is shielding it from the disillusionment of reality. Political movements have harnessed the ark's imagery, with nations and revolutionary groups invoking its authority to legitimize their causes. It symbolizes the tension between accessibility and transcendence, being both the most approachable and most perilous object in ancient Israel. Artistic depictions of the ark have evolved, from medieval reliquaries to Renaissance classicism to modern, otherworldly interpretations, each reflecting the society that produced it. The search for the physical ark represents a quest for certainty in an uncertain world, a desire for tangible proof of belief. Yet, the symbolic ark may hold greater value than any archaeological find. Symbols adapt and endure, carrying multiple meanings across time. The ark's allure persists, even for those outside Jewish or Christian traditions, as it embodies universal quests for meaning and divine protection. Archaeological discoveries may one day clarify the ark's fate, but its symbolic resonance will endure regardless. In an era of subjective spirituality, the ark addresses a need for external validation of inner experiences, bridging personal and communal faith. As a shared reference point for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, it fosters both unity and diversity in religious understanding. Its meanings is varied as the traditions that revere it. The enduring potency of the ark's symbolism reveals a profound human need for tangible anchors to grasp spiritual truths. While pure abstraction may suffice for philosophers, most people seek concrete emblems to connect with transcendent realities. The Ark of the Covenant, with its remarkable resilience across centuries, fulfills this role. Whether concealed in Ethiopian sanctuaries, buried in Middle Eastern caverns, or consumed by Babylonian fires, it persists as a throne for an unseen deity, a sacred nexus between heaven and earth, and a vessel for the divine amidst the mundane. Its echoes reverberate through popular culture, where the golden relic from Solomon's temple has been reborn on silver screens and in digital realms. The Ark leapt from ancient annals into the heart of modern entertainment, emerging as perhaps the most iconic religious artifact in contemporary media. In 1981, Hollywood harnessed its dramatic allure with Raiders of the Lost Ark, a film that stormed theaters worldwide. Directed by Steven Spielberg and produced by George Lucas, this rollicking adventure transformed an ancient enigma into a global phenomenon, shaping how millions envisioned the lost relic. The film's Ark wielded supernatural might, capable of melting faces and vanquishing armies, a portrayal rooted in biblical accounts but amplified for cinematic grandeur. It suggested the Ark's power remained as potent in the 20th century as in antiquity. Raiders of the Lost Ark ignited public fascination with archaeology, casting it as an exhilarating pursuit. Indiana Jones became the archetype of the scholar-adventurer, blending academic rigor with daring courage. The The film inspired countless young minds to explore archaeology, though few found the field as action-packed as depicted. Its success birthed a franchise that wove religious artifacts and supernatural mysteries into its narratives, drawing from diverse mythologies. Yet, the Ark remained the most indelible, its cultural impact unmatched. The film's depiction of Nazi obsession with the Ark, while dramatized, was grounded in historical truth. Real Nazi expeditions sought sacred relics, believing they held supernatural power, a footnote the movie spun into a gripping tale. Television soon followed Hollywood's lead, weaving the Ark into series and documentaries. From adventure shows to historical inquiries, the relic appeared in myriad forms, each adding layers to its cultural mythology. Channels like History and Discovery produced documentaries exploring Ark theories and expeditions, blending credible scholarship with speculative reenactments. These programs often blurred the line between education and entertainment, leaving viewers struggling to discern fact from dramatic flourish. Science fiction embraced the Ark as a lens for probing ancient technology and extraterrestrial influence, with some narratives positing it as alien equipment left by cosmic visitors, a reflection of modern UFO fascination. Video games uncovered rich storytelling potential in Ark-related quests. Players ventured through virtual worlds, blending historical research with pulse-pounding action. Titles like Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed wove Ark elements into their narratives, with Assassin's Creed embedding the relic in a mythology of secret societies and ancient technologies. Role-playing games enabled players to craft their own Ark-hunting sagas, where characters navigated ruins, decoded cryptic clues, and confronted supernatural guardians. The Ark became a staple of fantasy gaming, its mystique enduring in interactive realms. Literature embraced the Ark across genres. Thriller novels depicted modern treasure hunters racing to secure the relic before malevolent forces prevailed. Historical fiction imagined its biblical journeys, while religious novels used it to explore faith, doubt, and divine power. Authors crafted tales of contemporary characters encountering the Ark, wrestling with its implications for modern belief, blending adventure with spiritual introspection. Comic books and graphic novels offered vivid interpretations, their visuals capturing the Ark's rumored powers in ways text alone could not. The internet age ushered in new Ark-related content. YouTube channels produced documentary-style videos probing the relic's fate, some claiming insider knowledge of secret discoveries or government conspiracies. Online forums united amateur historians, believers, and skeptics, fostering debates over the Ark's whereabouts. Social media accelerated the spread of Ark content, with viral videos alleging archaeological breakthroughs or leaked documents, often outpacing verification. Streaming platforms created original series on religious mysteries, including Ark investigations, appealing to niche audiences with in-depth explorations. The Ark's prominence in entertainment reflects cultural appetites for stories blending historical authenticity with fantastical elements. Audiences crave narratives that marry scholarly rigor with wonder, and the Ark provides an ideal vessel. Educational institutions leveraged this interest, using Raiders references to engage students in biblical archaeology. Museums capitalized on the fervor, curating exhibits that paired pop culture with historical evidence, bridging entertainment and scholarship. Critics warned that popular culture muddled public understanding of archaeology and religious history, prioritizing spectacle over accuracy. Supporters argued it sparked curiosity in overlooked subjects, inspiring deeper study despite inaccuracies. The Ark's journey through popular culture illustrates how ancient symbols evolve for modern audiences. Each generation finds fresh meaning in its story, keeping the relic relevant to timeless human concerns, power, faith, and mystery. Entertainment has made the Ark more famous than ever, surpassing its reach through religious or historical study. Yet, this fame transforms it. The Ark of popular imagination, steeped in action and spectacle, diverges from the ritualistic reverence of ancient texts. Still, both serve parallel purposes. The ancient Ark unified a people in devotion. The modern Ark ignites wonder in a secular age, connecting audiences to something greater. In Jerusalem's ancient streets, dust settles on silent excavation sites. Archaeologists pack their tools, Treasure hunters depart with theories, but no relics. And the Ark remains as elusive as morning mist, as enigmatic as the day it vanished 3,000 years ago. Since Moses glimpsed its divine blueprint on Mount Sinai, empires have crumbled and technologies have soared, yet the golden box bridging heaven and earth evades discovery. Kings sent armies, priests guarded its secrets, and scholars chased fruitless leads, but the divine throne remains more elusive than any earthly prize. Each generation believes it holds the key, better maps, advanced tools, or deeper linguistic insight, yet joins the ranks of thwarted seekers. The Ark may lie in Ethiopian highlands, guarded by silent monks, or beneath Jerusalem's sacred stones, awaiting a shift in geopolitics. It may have perished in Babylonian flames, leaving only legends. Perhaps the search itself outweighs the discovery. The quest has fueled obsessions and failures, driving explorers to distant lands and scholars to ancient texts, linking modernity to its ancient past. The Ark's absence mirrors humanity's complexity. We crave mystery and answers, discovery and enigma. It offers questions more precious than solutions, its hiddenness humbling our technological hubris. For all our satellites and radar, some secrets endure. Believers find solace in its absence, arguing its holiness demands protection from scrutiny or exploitation. Skeptics question its existence, citing scant evidence and conflicting tales, suggesting the search persists for a symbol, not a substance. Yet symbols can outshine objects. The Ark embodies humanity's yearning for divine presence in a material world, a hope that sacred and secular can intertwine. New generations, inspired by texts or films, will continue the hunt with better tools and fresh perspectives. Political shifts may open restricted sites, hidden archives may yield clues, but the Ark may remain unfound, not because it's lost, but because its mystery serves a purpose solutions cannot. Its absence reminds us of our limits, suggesting mystery is not a flaw but a facet of existence. The Ark's story endures through books, films, and theories, a dialogue between past and present. Perhaps it was always meant to spark imagination, not sit behind museum glass. Its power lies in inspiring wonder, not in being found. The throne remains missing, but its kingdom persists. In every act of faith, every prayer, every hope that heaven and earth might meet. The physical Ark may be gone, but its spiritual essence lives in every quest for meaning. We hunt the Ark because we seek the divine, pursue the throne because we yearn for a king, and chase the missing because we hope to reclaim what we've lost. The Ark of the Covenant lingers between history and legend, shaping our present as its presence once shaped the ancient world. Its absence reigns from the shadows, governing imagination and fueling eternal quests. Perhaps that is triumph enough. Being sought may surpass being found. The Ark's greatest victory lies in remaining just beyond reach, beckoning us into mystery, adventure, and wonder. The throne is still missing, the search presses on, and the story never fades.